I really hope that I see some strong masculinity from Pixel tonight.
Hello, how's everybody doing tonight?
She got caught way off guard with that one.
Yeah.
Hello?
Oh shit, what's up, Dylan?
Welcome everybody, it's Friday night. You know what that means, another edition of the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. I think this is the 62nd or 63rd episode, almost going on 3 years now. We're headed towards the 3-year mark in the near future. I appreciate you all coming on. For taking time out of your Friday nights to come on this show to talk to people you disagree with. I really appreciate it. Let me get some ground rules out of the way. Of course, we will abide by Twitch terms of service if you're streaming on YouTube or if you're not streaming at all. I appreciate you coming on, but please do familiarize yourself with Twitch terms of service if you haven't already. We will send Twitch terms of service guidelines to you if you need that provided. We would appreciate if you did not go after people's immutable characteristics. That is a rule we have here that is not allowed. We will ask you to appropriately gender people. I don't care what you do in your own shows, but this is my show, and that is a rule that I have so we can have a productive dialogue. On top of that, when I'm talking, nobody else is talking, and I am not talking to throw in a bunch of points and make Dylan Burns come off as the debate king. I am merely going to be talking tonight to moderate the discussion. And finally, if you find it difficult to maneuver yourself around these topics tonight, you can raise your hand and I will write your name down, and I'll make sure eventually, this is the key word, and I don't want to have to explain this later. Eventually, we will get around to you. I will let the conversation flow naturally, and I do want to eventually get to everybody, but use it as a last resort, not a first resort, because I'm not going to just immediately throw it over to you. Okay, is there any questions about tonight's rules or any regulations placed on tonight's dialogue? Wonderful. I appreciate you all coming on. And lastly, a warning for everyone at home. Nobody discussing tonight's topic is an expert on any of the issues. Certainly none of the men on tonight's topic is an expert in masculinity. I know that for sure. So please do go and research other sources, use other commentators who might have more experience with these issues, and do your own research. I would greatly appreciate that. If somebody is an expert on something that's being discussed today, then they will say so during an intro statement. Also, intro statements, keep them short and snappy, and do not interrupt anybody else. While doing that, I will use the mute button liberally because I am a libcuck. Okay, so I'm going to go into an introductory period where everybody can introduce themselves. I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner with Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam, and fuck, I need a better camera. Jesus, I just realized it. Anyway, I'm Adam Something. I am on YouTube as Adam Something. I mostly do videos about politics and urban planning, lately the Ukraine crisis. And I just realized 5 minutes ago that I'm due on the Hippy Dippy today and not tomorrow. So it's nice to be here. Good thing I had that politics.gg AMA literally 5 minutes ago, and I was online for it.
Absolutely fantastic. I know everyone's running over to the Hippy Dippy now that that's over. I'm going to now throw it over to my Canadian best friend who is wearing the closest thing possible to a Proud Boys uniform with it not being a Proud Boys uniform.
Damn.
Thanks. Yeah, I figured we're talking about masculinity, like woke culture and all this shit. So why not? No, I'm kidding. Just a nice polo shirt. I'm trying to reclaim the polo shirt. There's no reason why we can't wear polo shirts, right? Like, screw the Proud Boys. I'm Bryce Live. You can catch me on BRYSLIVE here on Twitch. I'll be starting to do stuff a lot in May.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Hinduism. I'm now going to throw it over to my friend Fabian Liberty.
Hey, I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. We're an anarcho-capitalist duo stream. And, haven't been on Hippy Dippy in a while. Of course, my stream crashed the moment Dylan started speaking, and I had to reset it like 6 times before Twitch would make it work. So I guess movers and shakers over in Ukraine aren't just fighting the Russians. They must be fighting the ANCAPs too. But yeah, so we do anarcho-capitalist news, reactions, debates, philosophy reading night and stuff like that. You should come in and hang out. It's all good fun.
I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, that's wrong thing went up there. Sorry, I'm just showing
That's interesting.
we're always moving and shaking over here. I'm gonna throw it over to Heem, the person with the worst jokes on the platform.
Hey
God,
everyone, I'm
safe.
Heem. I'm the person with the worst jokes on the platform. You can find me on Twitch and also on YouTube. And everybody knows me. I have the fastest growing beard on Twitch, and I stream really shitty hours at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. So
You
if
also
you're ever
stream
up
shitty
that early,
streams.
yeah, okay, bro. I see you in chat all the time trying to stir shit up. And you can hear the smoke detector, I think, in the background.
Fantastic. We also host the Burned Out podcast together, which we haven't recorded another episode in a while. We need to, but we're
True.
working on revamping that, redesigning it. And, you know, when it comes back, it's going to be better than ever. We're now going to throw it over to my Scottish friend, Lonerbox.
Hey, I'm Lonerbox, non-binary, Middle Eastern, POC, polyamorous, YouTuber, Twitch streamer, 6'2", 60 IQ, quasi-sigma male. I like music, dark art, and I'm not afraid to cry in public.
And in private, we're going to throw it over to Pixel.
Good morning. I had no idea this panel was at 10 a.m. Australian time, so it's early on a Saturday morning. But I'm Pixel. I cover the graveyard shift on Twitch before him. So if you're American, you rarely see my content. But yeah, too left for some, not left enough for others, and clearly the most masculine person on this panel. So
Obviously,
very excited to have chats.
I gotta say, as now that I'm in Poland and I'm streaming Poland hours, but my normal stream hours from like midnight to 6 a.m., I have the most sympathy I've ever had in my life for Europeans and people in other time zones who go on panels that are hosted by
Feel my
Americans. I'm gonna throw it now over to Sprout.
A curd is a curd.
I'm
Good
the
luck,
Sprouticus. I'm a constitutionalist conservative. I stream sometimes. I'm trying to get a more steady schedule. Just threw myself in too hard when I came back from a 6-month break. But yeah, I'm excited to get ready and to get through the discussion. Let's go.
Yep, Sprout is my CIA contact. He's helping me smuggle javelins into Ukraine. I appreciate that hard work he's putting in. I'm gonna throw it now over to MPU.
Hey, I'm the MPU, the More Perfect Union, Twitch streamer, occasional, technical, do technical stuff too under the moniker MPU Tech TV as well. I've debated with all of you guys except for my hopefully new friend Adam something in the upper left. For me, looking forward to this, and I'm a constitutional conservative, and basically if you can't justify what you want to do under the Constitution, you got no play for me. So I'm looking forward to the debate. Dylan, I'm glad that you are still safe. Hold up in that luxury hotel that you've got behind you.
Yes, we call it the compound. The CIA gives its workers fine accommodations these days. Its budget has increased with the Biden administration, of course.
It's a Ukrainian safe house. It's
Yes,
a Ukrainian
yes.
safe house.
We let Red Pill we let Coach Red Pill go today. So lucky guy. We're now going to go into the first topic, which we're going to start with masculinity. The topic of masculinity has been something that's been up to debate for like a good amount of time now, both online and now wider in culture. Now gender norms and stuff is being more put up to debate and under scrutiny. So my question is masculinity under threat? I'm going to throw it first over to Lonerbox.
Kind of yes, kind of no. Traditional masculinity is definitely under threat because I guess it's just unattainable now. Like the old days of having a job that put you in a position where you could basically like secure a family, like take care of a wife and 2.5 children. It's gone. It's not coming back. And I think where women have adopted this kind of new life of like independence and things like that, men have just been kind of left with a bit of a void. How we fill that, I don't know. I guess we'll just wait and see how the panel goes.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Heem.
I think the toxic aspects of masculinity, of which there are a lot of and a lot to criticize, I think those are under threat. And some of that overlaps with more other parts of masculinity. So in that way, maybe it is under threat, but I don't know if it's a bad thing. Like, I'm not this kind of person that's like, hey, we need to keep everything as is, never change. Like, things change over time. What is masculine now, or what is feminine now wasn't that way 50 years ago, and things just change over time. So I think as long as we focus on, like, is the way that people are acting, is it sustainable, is it healthy? I think these things are more important than, like, hey, is masculinity specifically under in trouble or not.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Fabian.
Yeah, so I struggle to understand how to approach this in a blood sports panel because it seems like a much more complicated and nuanced discussion than what is really available here. I mean, I guess I would say first and foremost, anyone that says that masculinity isn't under attack is either unaware, uneducated, or is a liar. Anyone that says or claims that it's not under attack, like, you are one of those things. And if you're offended by that, please be offended, because I'm calling you either uneducated or a liar. The real problem here is that neither the left nor the right have a really good framework for being able to understand masculinity from an educational or academic perspective, because masculinity is an integrative process. This is something we understood in the 60s and 70s, and modern science is so, you could say pseudoscience is so focused on like a dialectic that they want to put things into categories and then attack those specific things. Like the conservatives, like, they have their family values and their Bible and their institutions, and like they recognize when something kind of threatens those. They kind of have a ingrained kind of, like, you could call it wisdom or preference or whatever, for like, the institution is under attack and I'm seeing that now, so we have to defend it. But the left uses this dialectic of like, oh, we're going to attack toxic masculinity. You've already heard him kind of like, give you that buzzword, right? And it's a really sophomoric and kind of silly and childish way to view it, because masculinity, you can't attack small aspects of masculinity and not be attacking the framework as a whole. I guess we'll get into more discussion. I'll probably just end up sitting back and raising my hand because it's going to be a shit show of buzzwords, I'm sure. But like, if you doubt that masculinity is under attack, then just like look at the APA guidelines for psychological practice with men and boys. Like, that's literally all you need to know that it's obviously under attack.
I'm going to throw it now over to Pixel.
Gosh, these opinions are already very interesting to me. I'm gonna need everybody to define what masculinity is, because I think it's not exactly under attack, but we're undergoing a shift in definitions of what gender even represents and what qualities are considered, I don't know, socially represented by gender in general. I think it's a good thing that we are breaking down things that are traditionally associated with any gender. And I think it's a good thing that we are allowing men to experience more emotions than just anger, which is, I just think the historical definition of masculinity has changed a lot over time, and it's going to continue to change. And I think people who are averse to that happening just find change very uncomfortable, or I don't know, maybe there's some jealousy there. Maybe it's like, well, how come all the kids now get to experience, this greater spectrum of emotions and ideas? And yeah, I don't know, this conversation is going to be interesting.
I'm going to throw it over to Sprout.
Yeah, I think traditional masculinity is under attack, and I think rightfully so. Close to 3/4 of men commit suicide, and aside from that, the other problems with that is that men die far more than women do of heart disease, accidents, or cancer, which both are highly affected by depression. And so yeah, I think the whole undertone stigma that men can't show emotions in public, men can't cry in public, men can't be human beings at the very core of what a human being is, leads to this massive outlier of men committing more suicides and dying of depression through other means as well. So yeah, I think that traditional masculinity is under attack, and I think rightfully so.
Could I ask you about that number again?
Yes.
What was the number you
It's
gave?
close to 3/4. It's 69.88% of all suicides are men.
Okay, got you. I heard it as 75% of men commit
No,
suicide.
so close.
That's
Close
what I
to.
heard
Yeah,
too.
Yeah,
No, I said.
Yeah, no, he clarified that. I picked up on that pretty quick.
Okay, thank you, Sprout. I appreciate it. I'm gonna throw it
Yep.
over to MPU.
Okay. Okay, as the old fucker on the panel, a job isn't masculinity, although in the past it was certainly attributed that you could be a breadwinner. The men were expected to be the breadwinner, women were supposed to take care of children. That is that's kind of an adage out from the old patriarchal societies, right? This is how societies or civilization is sort of have grown up over the couple millennia. The construct of toxic masculinity, right? That's just really somebody trying to like create this definition. I don't believe in that. I think that's just anybody who believes in like a traditional family value, like as it say the 1950s or whatever. I think anybody who believes in that is considered to be toxic. That's not necessarily toxic if it works in the particular family relationship. And because a female in the relationship is okay with that, that's between them, right? They've acceded to that. That's works for them. Now we live in more modern times. I think that definition is really shifted. What does it take to be part of a functional relationship in society? Whether it's male female, female female, polyamorous, whatever. None of that stuff matters. There's always a power dynamic that exists with it. So I think that the concept of toxic masculinity is really it's a superimposition really of how there is an untoward gain of excess power, right? And then as we look at like the construct of masculinity, femininity as it relates to like gender identity, again, society is changing. People are free to identify as they feel they can, and if it works for them in the construct of their relationships, that's totally fine. I think from a society perspective, we need to appreciate the fact that people may not think the way that we do, and accept that for what it is. But then on the other side of that coin, we also need to make sure that people have respect for our side, the other countervailing view, and to say that just because I don't believe the way you do doesn't invalidate you, but don't invalidate me because I don't feel the same way.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to my Canadian friend.
Thank you, my American friend who is not a war tourist, just to be clear. So I think masculinity is something that we ought to preserve. We need to specifically, though, separate it from the biological from the cultural. I think that there is a cultural masculinity. I think that there is a biological masculinity. We generally know that even though we disagree on what degree or what percentage there, that nature and nurture both exist. So we need to isolate which is which and allow for like the natural masculinity to exist, because hormones, either both in the prenatal stage to adolescence to adulthood, all influence how men and women both behave. So there's a lot of like scientific ground that needs to be seeded to this conversation, but I don't doubt that we're going to get into all kinds of weeds and yell at each other plenty about this. So it should be an interesting conversation.
And Adam something.
Thank you. First off, Dylan, you've been in Poland for a few weeks, in Europe for a few weeks, and you've already attended your first hanging, as I've seen, so congratulations. Anyway, so the topic. So masculinity is not under threat. I would not phrase it that way. What's happening here is not this concerted effort to wipe out masculinity, to feminize men. You know, this is harkening back to the 2016 NTSJW era. You know, the evil feminists are trying to turn men into a gender non-specific buzzword people. I would say that what's happening now is, of course, in America, and of course, largely in the first world, we're moving away from this very rigid sort of gender caste system, or it's a unwieldy description, but you get the idea. This is as someone else had put it before me, the guy in the three-piece suit and the trilby hat, the wife in the cute flowery dress in front of their suburban home with their 2 cars and 2.5 children. That period was very much more conservative than the period we live in now. Much more stratified, gender based on gender. And right now, this is sort of loosening up. So there's more exchange between the two sides, and the border is getting a bit more wishy-washy, which I think is fine. America was founded on the idea partially that you're not doomed to be in the caste, and you're not doomed to remain in the caste you were born in, as it was the case frequently in European monarchies, but that you can sort of make it how you want, and you can become who you want to be. It's a different question if this is valid nowadays, but economically at least. But I think I would extend this idea to gender as well. So if someone is a man, or wants to be more feminine, or if someone is a woman, biologically speaking, and so of course socially as well, and wants to be more masculine, it's their free choice, and no one's getting hurt. And I think a lot of negative aspects of society could be mitigated if we were just like more loose about this. As it was mentioned before, male suicide rates could be curtailed, and I think this would contribute to people living generally better lives. And I think any statements about how this is being forced on men, how men are being forced feminized by culture, I think this is just one of those moral panics that we have, that Americans had back in the 60s, 70s, the satanic panic, etc.
Okay, now the intro segments are finished. Who wants to start us off? Okay, I'll throw it over to MPU.
Yeah. So, Adam, I have to challenge you a little bit about what you said there at the end. The idea that masculinity or the like, it may be, and this could be true for different countries, right? But in the construct of my experience in the U.S., men have been under assault for a long time because we're considered to be brutish, right? The concept, the whole construct of toxic masculinity basically says if you're not pro-feminist, you are a toxic male.
Not
and there's
necessarily.
a lot of hang on.
Yeah, okay.
In this country, there are a lot of people who just simply believe that, in a traditional male-female relationship. Now, if they can find somebody that works for them, that they can find a partner that works for them in that construct, that's fine, right? Ultimately, relationships are about that. But people get painted into corners because they believe that, right? When you have somebody that says, I mean, this is the big thing under Reagan, and this goes back to Reagan and earlier, when you look at this thing, like traditional family values. Well, traditional family values to some people in America are really just you're old fashioned. You aren't with the modern times, and you are just trying to you because you believe that are trying to hold somebody down. And that's not exactly what that means. Now, it's not to say that there aren't, and you can find with every situation that you want to try to describe, you can find people out on the fringes, right, who are extreme one way or extreme the other way. And I think we do a disservice to the conversation when we try to say that because these fringes exist, that somehow makes everything in the middle bad. And this construct.
Who's saying that though? Like that's what I'm wondering. Like
Gloria Steinem said it, right? I mean, Gloria Steinem said all sex is rape and even marriage.
Yeah. Okay. So So
is she on this panel?
No. He said who said it. Come on, Heem. Right?
Okay.
He said who said it. That this stuff goes back to the 70s, right?
Yes, I know. But what I'm referring to is that when I asked who said it, what I mean is that I just don't see this major cultural push against the traditional masculine and traditional feminine, relationships. So, and those presentations, like I just don't think there's a huge offensive. Look, I live in a relationship which is very traditional. I'm masculine presenting, although people have called me a soy boy because I wear glasses. Go figure. But
is that all it takes?
I nowadays, yes.
know.
What can you do? And one sec. So like, and of course, and my partner is of course very feminine. Like I've not, and I also have friend circles and all over the country, in the Czech Republic, in Germany. This is very, very commonplace. Although there's also this push, same in America, to sort of try to blend them together a bit. To not this implies that it's done on purpose. No, this is just the natural process of society opening a bit.
Is that just me?
Nope,
No.
that is
it's
everyone.
Yeah, you have a little bit of internet connection
Lagging.
thing. You might want to restate what you were just talking about.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll try to plug myself
You're
in
still
No,
breaking
you're-
up at
you're
the
still-
moment.
Yeah, you're still breaking up.
Okay, one sec.
I'm gonna throw
Now
it.
he's
Okay.
fine. When he walks
While
away.
he's fixing, can I say quick? Okay, my issue is okay. I think a big part of traditional masculinity was like being the dominant one over your woman, not basically an inequality between men and women. Is in my opinion one of the hallmarks of masculinity. Okay, so I think a big part of the shift that has happened over the last few decades is this like, hey, men and women can do equal. Like you don't need to have these gender roles at home. Like I cook, like these things are possible for men to do without having to be like emasculated by just simply by washing a dish or by cooking a meal, and I think it's important that we kind of acknowledge that like that in my opinion is what's under attack, is the inequality.
No, it's
and
not.
and
It's
we're kind
like-
of trying to
Not even. That's not what.
yeah.
It's not true.
Not
It's
with
not true.
third
So
wave
this is the
feminism.
problem.
Third wave feminism
No,
has
this
taken
is-
this
Wait,
entirely.
listen,
wait,
listen, this is the-
wait. Okay, there's two
Hang
of
on,
you
hang on.
talking at the same time. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Okay.
I think
Go.
Fabian was actually starting to talk.
Okay, then I'm gonna go Fabian, then Sprout.
like, sorry, just one thing,
This is-
Fabian. Before, just one thing.
Wait,
Like,
no, wait.
really,
Him.
one quick thing, just
Respond
as
to
a-
me
him,
saying
him,
nothing by
him.
saying
I
something.
just want to
Him.
add on top real quick.
Him.
It used to be really.
Okay, Fabian, continue.
Oh, no.
Well, no. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Is that the right recognizes instinctually that there is an attack on masculinity, but has difficulty defining it and difficulty seeing where where it is in the institutions, and difficulty naming the policies and the places that it is, because they're
Yes,
not
it
tracking.
was. What do you
it.
mean?
We
If
have
your woman used to speak up to you.
hey, doctor.
So sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I was still muted.
Soon
I'm
to
sorry,
be
I'm
Dr.
sorry.
Heem. It's fine.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
it happens to me all the time on Hippy Dippy. Right?
You're gonna
Like,
yell into the
thing
empty
is-
echo
the thing
chamber.
Is, so the thing is, listen, the thing is that when we're talking about like, well, where is this? We're just talking about like equal work and equal pay and certain rights and not having dominance. When you look at this isn't brand new, right? This isn't like, oh, this happened or was published yesterday. The APA guidelines for boys and men is 2018. And in their definitions, they have to define gender, cisgender, gender bias, gender role strain, masculinity ideology, gender role conflict, oppression, privilege. When you see these things such as oppression and privilege, you know exactly what you're dealing with. You're dealing with Marxist philosophy marching through the institutions that wants to tack specific. I know you roll your fucking eyes every time you hear
Dude,
Marxist,
I wish-
and yet you
I wish it
also
was
admit
Marxist.
that I'm mixed pixel.
Well,
at
it's
the very
because I've
beginning that
read
I'm
Marx,
talking over your
and
head.
anyone who's read Marx knows that this is such an enormous
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
stretch. But carry on.
It's
By the
not
way,
an enormous fucking stretch just because you
No, it's
choose
not a
to
stretch at all.
obfuscate neo-Marxist
Can I
And
ask
it's
you a
not,
philosophy
question?
and
it's not
critical
just
theory.
Marx. It's
No,
what
it's-
came
Wait, okay,
after Marx.
okay.
It's
One second.
okay,
One
would
at
you
a time.
prefer that I say neo-Marxism? Would you prefer that I
How
say it's
about-
not crude
What
Marxism?
if you said
instead of-
Marcuse?
Well,
Fabian,
Marxism
No.
would be more about the integration of like the perfect state, right? Like
But Fabian,
obviously would be
when-
influenced in some regard to that. But listen to me, listen for just a fucking second. When you talk about, oh, we're just talking about equal work in the home. No, you're fucking not, and you're
not
obfuscating what is
equal work.
occurring,
It's not
and you're
equal
obfuscating
work.
what people are talking about. You're
No, I'm
trying
not
to say
talking about
you're trying to
equal
say
work.
that the things that are under attack, you're trying to obfuscate by creating a straw man of what's under attack and not addressing the actual fucking issues that are
Fabian,
going
can-
on in our institutions.
Quick
Wait, listen,
question. Fabian, wait, quick question. Quick question. Is my audio better? Should
Yes.
be.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Good. Sound great.
Yeah.
Sound great.
Okay, nice.
Honestly, you
Fabian,
sounded great when you
Fabian.
started walking away.
Can I? Yeah. Can I
Fabian,
talk-
Fabian, wait, very
Okay,
important.
go.
Fabian, can you define Marxism for us?
Oh, I'm not going into a trap where we want to.
Can you
where we're
give
gonna.
a quick definition of Marxism for the
Oh fuck! All right. So the
I think
quickest
I think
definition that I
enough
could
of
give
it is that you
Marxism
believe that
that I could give
Marxism is
Marxism.
defined.
Let him
the
answer.
quickest The
Oh no,
quickest
please, please.
definition.
Okay.
The quickest definition that I could give Marxism that would encapsulate neo-Marxist philosophy and classical Marxist philosophy and Marcusean critical theory and all of these other institutions would be something along the lines of capitalism and other cultural aspects are part of a mythology such as heteronormativity and patriarchy and anything else that you want to replace within the word of capitalism, that this is a mythology that is created so that a certain power dynamic or certain power group or someone that has the superposition is able to flex their power or maintain their power by upholding this ideology that there is an oppressed and there is an oppressed and an oppressor within this dichotomy, and that in order to do this we need to engage in a Marxist materialist dialectic framework to look at the institutions, find the part of the institutions that match within our ideology, blow them up, reorganize the power dynamics and the structure of society, and then synthesize them. But we'll never be rid of these problems until we raise gender, race, class consciousness, etc. to a certain point. That's the best that I can do to encapsulate
Okay,
all of
I'm
those.
just going to be.
pretty good
I just need like 3
encapsulation,
seconds.
actually.
Okay, I just need like 3 seconds. Okay, first of all, everyone knows that Marx didn't invent the idea of oppressor and oppressed. Second of all, as terms of power relations between men and women were being challenged by Mary Wollstonecraft before Marx was even born. Okay, feminism has existed as a concept before Marx. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, I know you just want to attach Marx to the like anything that challenges power
He was
dynamics,
literally
but it's okay.
answering. Wait a
It's
second.
okay.
He was literally answering Adam's question about Marxism. It had nobody
then you-
talked about Marxism until Adam brought it up.
And then,
No,
and then
no,
you
no,
tried
Fabian,
to,
no,
Wait,
and then you
no,
tried to link it to
no,
feminism.
Fabian
Okay?
brought up Marxism. Fabian
Yeah,
brought up
Fabian did.
Marxism, so
Yo,
please
real
don't
quick.
say that no one brought it up till then.
Okay,
And then you
Anyways,
tried to. and then
feminism-
you-
Exactly what the left does. They refuse to answer.
Oh my God.
They refuse to
Stop,
answer
please.
to their fucking crimes.
Please. Oh,
They refuse to
no,
answer
don't make
for
me
any
do
of
this,
their
Fabian.
bullshit.
Fabian,
And
no.
instead
tried
they
to-
get
Fabian, no.
definitions.
No.
You tried to link it to
What-
feminism
no,
and
no.
gender.
Crimes.
Okay, who's next?
What crime?
Okay, now Adam's next. Who's next?
Please, can I go, please? No, wait, Fabian, I want to ask you a question, okay? So, back in
Okay, who's next? Okay, half the panel's muted. Who else wants to be muted?
I think
Okay, now 5 people are muted. Who wants to be next? Okay, you want to know what? Sprout has actually been waiting to talk for a very long time. Okay, and since he survived the purge, he's next. Okay, I'm gonna unmute everybody, but when I talk, nobody else talks, please. I know it's hard to moderate you all when you're all such masculine men. Okay, Sprout.
Right, so feminism isn't bad. And there's a lot of people who are gonna say feminism is bad, that feminism is the reason that like masculinity is going down the drain, etc. and so on. Feminism is bad. The bad thing about feminism is third wave feminism. They took it too far. It's not about being equal anymore. It's about downplaying the man. But like I said prior to, I'm not like disagreeing that masculinity should be taken shots at. Masculinity should have shots taken at it because it's obviously leading to the downfall of men. And there are certain parts of this that I would say need to have more of a shot at than the other parts. I think that a traditional marriage is fine if that's what you want to get into. I'm in a traditional marriage, but I don't think that has to do with what I'm saying when masculinity deserves to have shots taken at it. It's more so the public. It's more so the public reaction to men and their behaviors in public. Men should be able to show emotions. Men should be able to be human beings. I don't
know. Nothing is wrong on my end. I have to. Oh, sorry, my bad.
You're good. And that right for men to be human beings has slowly been taken away by a public stigma that we're supposed to just shake it off. We're not supposed to feel things. We're supposed to be the strong person. We're supposed to be able to hold up the women and the children in the household, that we cannot feel any emotions ourselves. And so, I mean, that's the part of masculinity that I think needs to have a shot taken at it, needs to go away.
I want to offer like a peacekeeping thing with the conservatives. Okay, I think we can talk about masculinity without talking about Marx. It's fine. I want to say, like, when people talk about toxic masculinity, like, there are very specific aspects of like masculinity that people can probably agree is toxic, like the like over like high expectations when it comes to like pride. I know like every time since my sister was about 17, when she would correct my dad, my Lebanese dad at the dinner table, he would like he looked like his fucking soul was destroyed. You know, you're not supposed to get like that kind of thing. We can all agree is probably quite toxic, but like I know conservatives maybe don't like hearing toxic masculinity because it often seems like it's a thing that's directed from left-wing men towards conservative men, but I think that's actually really unfair. From my own experience of like going between different like backgrounds, is like when I started hanging out with like artists or like musicians or hippies and like more like left-leaning people, it didn't take me that long to discover that those people were actually like just as insecure and toxic as like a socially conservative person who goes to football at the weekend. Like the left actually doesn't have a good alternative masculinity at the moment. I don't think. I think they're just as prone to insecurity and toxicity and obscenely high expectations and one-upmanship and all that bullshit as everyone else. So I just think as far as where we go from here, like I think the idea of masculinity does need to be like reinvented. I think just the worst thing we can do is like what some people on the right are trying to do now is to look backwards. So a good example, that Tucker Carlson commercial with the hard times make a hard Tucker or whatever. And it's like, you can see in like the first couple of frames, there's like a shot of a guy milking a cow, and there's no bucket like underneath the cow. Like masculinity is like a muscular topless guy like just squeezing a cow's tit for no reason. But yeah, like it's ridiculous. So I think we can do better than Tucker Carlson. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so
there's definitely.
you're on the list, so I'll let you go. But Heem, after that we have Fabian, Adam, MPU. Okay.
Okay. One thing I'm gonna just implore everybody: let's try to avoid as many buzzwords, boogeymen, and like needlessly obscure or like broad, all-encompassing labels as we can. Let's try to describe all these phenomena with relatively simple language, so we can make everybody's life really easy. And I think we can probably do that really, really well. And I think everybody's not double-digit IQ here, so we can probably achieve it with no issue. But to an extent, I do agree with Lonerbucks. I think that there, like, because what I was trying to say in my open statement is that there's like the biological features of being a man through like the results of like testosterone and other things, like whether this be like the natural like instinctive behavior, and what we have is like cultural and like socialized norms, right? I think one of the ones that is highlighted is like that would fall under like toxic masculinity is the idea that there's like the stoic, right? Like that it's a misinterpretation of what it means to be a stoic, and that all men are expected to be like this like new kind of stoic where if you have any emotional reaction, you're meant to just like repress it or ignore it or just deal with it, just cope with it. Um, and I think that's something that's really, really problematic, and especially ideas that are so like baked into our culture of like hard times make good men, and then soft times make bad men, and this like cycle just kind of like repeats itself. So I think that there's a lot that we have to delineate and like separate and isolate individually so that we can have a conversation about this. Because yeah, absolutely, the left only has the solution of let's fucking smash everything and deal with it in the aftermath when we have no fucking idea what to do.
Heem?
Okay, finally. Sorry I spoke out of line. You tricked me, you asshole. Okay, so back in the day, okay, it used to be completely normal if a husband and wife get into a fight for the husband to beat his wife, okay? This is not buzzwords now, this is just straight facts, okay? So and then when society trended towards that becoming unacceptable, people could have said masculinity is under attack, okay? So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that there are aspects of it that should be under attack. And a lot of this, in my opinion, comes down to men and women becoming more equal. And part of that is, as Lonerbox said in his opening, because of you don't have that traditional family structure anymore. Not because the left is attacking traditional families. The left doesn't want stay-at-home moms and homemade cookies. It's because the mom has to go to work. It's more a byproduct of the structure and the system of capitalism and how it is in the Western world than it is of like some sort of specific plan of like, no, we're not gonna have any more stay-at-home moms. Moms have to go to work because masculinity bad. Like I don't think that's what it is. It's just a natural progression of things.
I don't think it's
Societal change-
capitalism.
Oh, may I? Or,
Sure, and then we're gonna go to Fabian because Fabian's on the list.
okay, so what we need to realize is societal change is very rarely, in fact, basically almost never, is the product of this tyrannical cultural push from a different political pole. It's usually just material conditions, such as for women, the big equalizer was the like affordable household appliances, which freed them up from having to do housework all day long, so they could spend more time with self-actualization. The washing machine, for example, being one of them. So just keep that in mind. It's mostly material conditions, not this big cultural boogeyman that's a moral panic.
Okay, Fabian?
Yeah, I mean, I like it's difficult to have a conversation with people that deny anything that you bring up is just a moral panic. And anytime you try and specifically talk about anything that is actually occurring, or you
Like
bring
Marxism?
up APA, or yes, like neo-Marxist philosophy that is in the institutions.
The definition you gave made no sense.
It made perfect sense. It made perfect. No,
correct
stop,
response.
stop. Let me fucking finish.
Go ahead.
Right, and then you can go ahead and retort and say that no, it's just the material possession, the material conditions.
That's not what I said. But
Okay, anyways, first of all, beating your wife has never been a part of masculinity in either a European or American culture. It's never been considered masculinity to beat your wife. Okay, that's just not fucking true.
If your woman speaks up out of line, you're telling
It
me
is-
it was normal
it
for
is
you
never
to
been-
do
it
somebody?
has never been. It has never been a part of
Cultural
masculinity.
moray.
Actual
Okay.
substance on
That's-
this. Okay,
Wait.
so
Look,
Bruce-
wait.
Okay.
The question was
It's
asked to
never been
Fabian, so we're gonna have Fabian respond
It has
about.
never been a part of
this.
masculinity to beat your wife. Okay,
He's
just
wrong.
because certain legal institutions did not catch up to the progressive era does
me
not mean
ask
that
you,
it was
okay.
a part of masculinity to beat
Okay.
your wife in
If-
in
so-
Europe or in
Yeah,
America.
engage.
I
Let's
have
engage.
actual
Let's engage.
substance. I have actual
Let's
substance on
engage.
this.
Wait, I want to engage with him. Wait, so you're telling me that back in the day, okay, if a woman was speaking out of line and a man didn't hit her, that other men wouldn't be like, "Wow, look at this guy, he's a softie," or "He's weak. Look at his woman, she's calling the shots."
No one said that it would be considered emasculating to not slap your wife, especially if you're talking about a situation that is in public. It has never been
Women were
considered
considered
masculine.
property. Like
If
it was
you're-
absolutely
No, this
considered
is feminine
masculine to
drivel.
put
You
women
have-
in
that's okay.
line.
There are
This is
contemporary.
feminist.
there are contemporary-
Patriarchal, but that's a patriarchal construct.
It's
Well,
it's
people
historical
look at-
revisionism.
Yeah,
And
people
Middle
doesn't
East-
matter because you have
Listen.
contemporary examples in Russia, right? Like, there's a reason why they decriminalize spouse abuse and like domestic abuse in Russia.
Oh yeah.
Like, this is definitely like a feature of like masculine culture. Like,
It's
you look
not
at
just.
Of
It's not
course.
just
It's not-
Russia.
no,
It's
no,
not just
okay, I'm
Russia.
sorry.
Stop. Okay,
Say
wait.
patriarchal.
Wait.
Right?
Okay.
Patriarchal.
So in the
Okay,
middle,
so it is
so
patriarchal, yes.
Sure.
okay, and I know this because I was gone for 6 months talking to people who were from Afghanistan, and they were refugees here in America, and there were certain issues that happened in Afghanistan that were culturally okay in Afghanistan that are not culturally okay in the United States. One of those issues, which was a very small issue, we had a couple people that had issues with it, but it wasn't a huge issue, was men smacking their wives when they got into an argument. And so it is a culture thing. The culture in the Middle East is much different than it is in the United States, and they have to go through that cultural difference to actually be able to come over here and become a refugee in the United States. But
When
there
you
is
say
a
it's different,
cultural
it's more
difference.
traditional. It's more traditionally masculine, right?
Yes, it's more traditionally masculine.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think I
Yeah,
can
but
help you.
it's
like a
He-
different
he-
culture.
I think you can kind of like it doesn't have to be a part of masculinity like on the books for it to have. It's like an unintended consequence, right? So I think like if a lot like masculinity has a lot to do with like pride and expectation,
No,
and then that
no.
pride is challenged. Let me finish, please. And then that pride is challenged, and then men feel like you ever heard that saying? There's nothing more dangerous than a humiliated man. You know, men in like the workplace, you know, they're humiliated by their bosses or by other men. They go home, they have a wife who is not going to get the protection from the state, and they take it out on her because they get away with it because that's an unintended consequence of expectations that are placed on men. It still happens today. I don't know if you know the stat that like the number of domestic assaults in the UK like goes up whenever England plays football, but
Women
it goes
commit
up when they
more-
win as
women-
well as when they lose. So it's
Women
like-
The reason
literally
I brought
create,
that up-
women literally create are more often abusers than men. What are you talking about? Like, why are we talking about domestic violence?
Women
as
are more
somehow-
often abusers than men. That's what you're
Yes,
saying.
that's a statistical fact. Women
Yeah,
are more
where's the-
likely to
where's the
abuse
stats?
men
That in
than women.
Where's the
domestic,
stats?
that in
That's
domestic
not even
abuse.
that's not even a controversial
Yeah, well,
statement. That's
Yeah,
just
I-
a fact.
very important. I'm sorry.
I need
just-
to see a
Wait,
stat.
okay, stop.
Wait.
Okay, so
Can-
everybody,
Tying this to
okay,
masculinity.
please, everybody, don't make my job hard. Okay, everybody's talking at the same time. Okay, so we have a list of people that need to talk, and something that was just said that I think multiple people want to challenge. Okay, so Pixel hasn't talked a lot, so I want to throw it over to Pixel. Then we're probably going to go down the list, which has Adam, MPU, and Sprout on it. I understand that like going down the list is like makes it less of a flow, but like if we have people interrupt each other, we don't really have a choice. So we're gonna throw it to Pixel.
I'm just letting the men talk about masculinity here to not make it about women's issues. But if we're just going to say that women are more often abusers than men, that is a fucking stretch. You only have to take a look at recent history. And if you want to take it back to what MPU was saying before, where in the 1950s, whatever was traditional family unit, and if that is like the glowing representation of relationships between the genders, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, we're moving forward, and what's happening is there is
Don't
an
misinterpret that,
underlying
Mixer.
there is an underlying shift in the connotation that is associated with masculinity. For a very long time, the connotation associated with masculinity has been masculinity good, masculinity strong. Whereas for a lot of recent history, femininity has been associated with like the opposite of those things. So softness, and then if you take it a negative spin, it's been like weak, and showing things like empathy have been perceived as weak. So the shift in the connotation and understandings that underpin gender, that's the big shift. And masculinity is now being perceived as both good and bad. And I think that's kind of like where this is all stemming from. I do kind of agree that certain parts of feminism as it is presented on the internet today do attack men, right? Because the shift is now women feel like they've been beaten down so much that the response to that is, let's beat men down. It's retaliatory, it's bad. But at the same time, women also are still punching up because of like the historical relationship between the genders. And so it's not that masculinity is under attack. It's just that it's just the shift. Sorry. Does that make sense? Anyway.
Okay, I guess we're going to throw it over to Adam then.
Okay, one quick thing before I begin my tirade. I'm addressing Fabian here. Beating your wife has absolutely been part of European culture. I can personally vouch for this. The mantra, at least back in Hungary, was that, and in Hungarian it rhymes. It's kind of like a rhyme, but in English translated it would be like, my man is the best person. I give birth to him so he doesn't beat me. So this was the sort of cultural zeitgeist back in the day. The domestic abuse was absolutely part of it. So, but you bring up also a good point. So female on male domestic abuse also exists, and it is not insignificant. I don't think I'm not quite sure there's more of it than male on female, but there
is more of it. But the difference is that because one, it's in reciprocal violence, right? Tends to shift those numbers so that it could be slightly higher on men's side. And secondly, men being stronger and larger, the victims of, let's say, murder from domestic violence and things like that is much more skewed against wisdom. But when you
This is just categorically false.
Wait,
where are you getting that from? I'm just interested.
I'll pull a study up now if you want me to, but there are plenty of studies about this.
I just wanted to finish this thought though. I think we can all agree, whether it's the majority or not, we can all agree that female on male domestic abuse is a not insignificant number / phenomenon. Of course, I mean we're all like above 80 IQ here. However, interesting question. So how come we're not dealing with the female on male domestic abuse so severely as with the male on female? Could this have to do something with perhaps some toxic masculinity, with some unhealthy ideas about being a man? About like, a man gets battered at home and then, he's afraid to go to the police or the authorities because, hey, that's fucking pussy shit. What are you? Did you get beat up by your wife? What are you, fucking beta? Like, these are all very harmful ideas, which we're discussing here. And I think Fabian accidentally brought this good point up by proxy, and I think it's worth discussion.
Well,
I don't know where you're getting this information. I actually have a study from from the National Library of Medicine. They found multiple things. They found women's violence usually occurs in context of violence against them by their male partners. In general, women and men perpetrate. In general, this is what they found. Okay, I'm not done yet. In general, women and men perpetrate equivalent levels of physical and psychological aggression, but evidence that suggests that men perpetrate sexual abuse, coercive control, and stalking more frequently than women. Women and men are equally likely to initiate physical violence in relationships involving less serious situational couple violence and relationships in which serious and very violent intimate terrorism occurs. Men are much more likely to be perpetrators. Women's physical violence is more likely than men's violence to be motivated by self-defense and fear, whereas men's physical violence is more likely than women's to be driven by control motives. And studies of couples in mutually violent relationships find more negative effects for women than for men. And then it goes on further to say that a sizable minority of individuals arrested for domestic violence each year in the United States is a female. So when you bring all these stacks up, yes, I do believe that women abused against men goes far underreported, but I don't believe it goes enough underreported to make the asinine claim that women are more likely to be abusers than men in a relationship. I think that's an asinine
real
claim.
quick. From what you just read, is you said it's massively underreported and the levels are the same. You just read that off. Now, obviously, what you read off is
You
that
said that women are more likely.
You just
Well, you
said from the
basically just
specific
gave
study,
him the information that proves his point.
right? You
No, I
literally
don't.
said
No, you don't get to just jump.
You just self own.
Stop. Fucking hell. Okay, I'm gonna need everyone to turn up my mic a little bit, okay? Because apparently my mic is just not working. Okay, so I'm gonna have Fabian, who is responding, finish responding. Okay.
You just said that the reported cases, or that the likelihood was roughly the same, and you then restated everything that I had already said, which was I had talked about reciprocal violence, and I had talked about the differences between men and women and the fact that outcomes are often worse for women. But then you said that I believe that it is massively underreported. When you put those two things together, you just prove my point for me, which is that women are more likely to commit domestic violence than men. And
it does not say that women are more likely. No, it does not. In a study in Tennessee. You have to give me a fucking second, would you? Thank you. A study in Tennessee found that 16% of those arrested for intimate partner. A study in Tennessee found that 16% of those arrested for intimate partner violence were female. And so with that being said, I don't think the underreported amount of men being abused by their wives or men being abused by their girlfriends, I don't think that goes anywhere to up that 16% to go over 50%. You made the asinine claim that women are more likely to be abusers than men. Nothing in the study shows that women are more likely. No, nothing in the study shows that women are more likely to be abused by to be the abuser than men are likely to be the abuser. Nothing in the study shows that. This study shows that they are equal to get physical about equally, and then it also says that women's violence usually occurs in the context of violence against them by their male partners. So take into consideration. No, I would say that women are far less likely to be the abuser in the relationship than the man.
You literally repeated
you said that they were underreported,
with the study, and then you said it was underreported, and then you said that it was roughly the same. Like,
I did not.
Do you not get
okay.
that? Now, in terms of
Go back, watch the VOD.
Again,
You said that women are majorly above that.
Right. The arrests, I didn't say majorly. I said more likely. But the arrests can be explained by two additional factors. Number
Where's
one.
Your study? Where's your study that says they're more likely?
Why do I need to bring up another study and waste time on the panel when you just proved my point with your own fucking
I did not
study?
prove your point.
It doesn't know. Nothing that America said proved your point. Like, I'm sorry.
It absolutely does. Like,
it does not. I don't know I don't know what you were hearing, but it did not prove your point.
I think everybody's enjoying the back and forth.
Okay.
I think I can simply look at this study from the Wilson Center, right? And there's a clear example in Russia, because you specifically also made the claim that this was not something in the West or like Europe, but we know that in Russia, and it's largely
Russia's
as a
not
result.
in Europe.
Sort of is.
part of
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
kind of considered like.
Yeah, it
I
A
is.
little bit of it
specifically
is.
Anyway.
didn't include the Middle East and Russia and other places like that, and I'm talking about America because I'm an American and about the culture that
Okay,
is
that is great, not a
predominantly
problem.
like
I will no,
England,
listen, doesn't
France,
matter. I don't
like
wanna get
like
mired down in this. I don't give a shit. We can look at specifically the East European countries that were previously part of the Soviet Union that also have a really strong influence from the Orthodox Christian Church and see that in these places like Hungary, I think is what Adam listed off, even like
Yeah.
Poland and other countries, the majority of these like Eastern countries that have super close proximity, Georgia. Georgia is a great example of a Christian, devoutly Christian nation that is really bad with regards to like the treatment of women and women's rights, and has a general propensity to have a culture where women as well will underreport things like domestic abuse because there's a culture that is like accepted, baked, largely resulting from religion. And we get to like, I feel like we can really get mired in the weeds with discussing this because this is just fact. Like these things exist. This exists in like even like Western culture because like it exists in Western culture. It's not nearly as bad as it is in those Eastern European countries, but it does exist, right? So I really think that we should just loop back to the point that like regardless of all these things, masculinity is definitely under attack in some respects, but we have to distinguish like what is the like cultural facets that we like have a problem with. And it seems like we're really just getting like completely derailed into like these like boogeymen and whether or not that like this or that actually exists. But we know like as an example of the Russian stuff because and it's going to be mirrored in these Eastern European countries, I guarantee you. Women are there's like
countries
14
decimated by World War II that lost tens of millions of people, and specifically men. Like I specifically didn't bring them up in the cultural context. And again, as you mentioned, that's not the point that I'm arguing anyways. The point that I'm arguing is that this idea that like we want to change some aspects of masculinity is not the same thing as the push from academia, the push from the institutions in psychology and APA guidelines.
What are you
the push
talking
in
about?
schools,
No, that's
and
insane.
the way
I'm
that and the way
literally
that
No,
in
that's
one
the
of these
underlying
institutions.
premise of the
Hang on,
question.
hang on. 1 second, MPU. I'm literally in a university right now, like a very well-ranked university, and I've taken psychology courses and philosophy courses, and there's not some like baked-in neo-Marxist shit. There's not a Marxist thing. One of my professors was a Marxist who specifically had several lessons where he entertained like capitalism and like opposing points of view to Marxism. Like, there's not some like conspiracy like
majority of the humanities are critical theorists or avowed Marxists. What are you talking about?
What do you mean the
That's
majority?
not
This
true at
is
all. They're not
yeah, this-
avowed. Oh my
I'm sorry,
god.
you're
Okay.
in, but
Yeah.
you're
We're
in
not- we're-
Canada,
we're
right?
talking about
You're in
masculinity,
Canada,
okay, not
so-
Marxist.
Citation needed.
Can
So
I?
you're in Canada, and it may be
uh,
true for you in Canada, but he's talking about the United States. And
Right,
what
and
he's
even
saying in
in
the
the
United States is,
hang on,
pretty
even in the
true in the
United
United
States.
States.
No. Trust me. I know people that have gone to Ivy League. Yes, I know people that
I'm
I
with
know
you.
people have gone to Ivy League and other like really top ranked schools. It may be true in like the really bottom ranked schools and like really no schools, or maybe some outliers too.
Really?
Or maybe because this is the thing, you are going like here's another thing that at some when there's somebody at a school that is a faculty member, it doesn't mean that just because that person is a faculty member who happens to be a critical race theorist or similar, does not you cannot from that extrapolate that the entire faculty and that the entire curriculum is thus this.
That's not what he said. That's not
That's
what he
literally
said.
what he's saying.
We're
No,
talking
No,
about.
he said that.
I didn't
he
say
said
the
that there
entire
are a lot.
institution is Marxist.
No, but you're saying if the professors have some sort of Marxist leaning, which most of them don't. They don't have economic leanings.
You don't know
towards
that.
redistributing
You
them.
cannot make
Wait,
that
one
statement
sec, let
without
me-
proving
no, because-
it. You can't make
wait,
that
one
statement
sec, one
without
sec.
proving it.
One sec. I've read this. Have you read the book American Marxism from Mark Levin? Because everything you're saying it was mentioned in this book. I read this book recently.
Not that book specifically. No.
Okay, I read this book recently. I've heard all these arguments you're making. Okay, so I
Cool.
agree that there
Then
are.
you should be able to
Let me
challenge.
wait a
Okay,
sec.
well
one
then let
sec.
him finish it
So
then.
I agree. Fucking hell. So I agree with you that there are progressives that are teaching humanities, but this idea that like, oh, just because they're progressives that there isn't some sort of oversight on what they're teaching and they get to just exclusively pick their favorite fucking leftoid literature to teach
Once
as
they're
their curriculum.
tenured, in the United States, they could teach whatever the
Nobody's
fuck they
saying
want.
that.
And
No,
one sec, just to
literally
follow
nobody's saying that. Stop
one more thing. So if you're in a degree for gender sciences or learning about
You're
the
wasting
history
your money.
of all these things, if that's what you're in for, then what do you want? Who do you want to teach you? That's who has to teach that, right? Like if you're in the humanities for something that's like I don't want to say obscure, but like these things that
English.
are
Literature.
Like there are humanities that can be like human resources, for example,
are you
or
really- are you-
sociology degree. I'm saying
you-
those
hold
are
on,
less
are you really-
susceptible.
Are you really trying to make the argument that the humanities in the university system has
He is.
not been heavily influenced by critical theorists and critical philosophers?
What I'm
Influenced
saying
by
is
is
the
doing
arts,
the
the
most heavy.
studies.
Influenced by is doing the biggest
A
amount of heavy
majority
lifting.
of sociologists
you could
identify
say
as critical theorists.
you could say that like a majority of like sociologists like in the UK are like influenced by Marxism, but the influence means they teach it like for 2 weeks out of a year for every like
I'm
third
not
year
talking
student. Like,
about classical Marxism. Stop pivoting and running and hiding from
you can
this
talk
shit,
about critical
acting
theory
like
as
it's
well.
fucking-
Then
Okay, well then let's talk
Okay,
about
well,
it. A majority of
Let's talk about,
sociologists
we're
are
talking about masculinity,
Marcuse's.
really.
Let's talk about Marcuse's impact on neoliberalism since
Where
the
should
60s.
they teach these things?
Oh,
Where
my
should they teach
God.
these things?
No one
Okay,
in this
can
panel has
I?
read Marcuse.
Okay. You know what? I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make an exec.
For
Wait. You know,
decades.
I'm making an executive decision. Okay, my executive decision is this is really boring, and I don't think
Johnson.
anybody wants to hear people talk about the dialectical neo-Marxist, Marcusean, fucking Maoist, Leninist fucking framework. I don't think anybody.
Shouldn't have picked the other two topics because this is how it's going on all night, Dylan.
Oh, wonderful! That's gonna be great.
You're unbearable.
But we've discussed it, and if you did you have two full other topics to talk about that, Fabian? So we'll skip that out for now. Okay. I want to bring it back to the list because I think there's more that can be discussed. Loner, you want to be added to the list? I'll add you to the list. MPU, you're next on the list.
Yeah, there's a difference, right, between what culturally has been acceptable for, which has morphed over time. I think everybody recognizes that as societies or civilizations have tended to progress, that the construct of what is male or female or male gender role, female gender role has morphed. Has it accelerated since the 1950s? Yeah, sure has. Has it accelerated? Not, I think, I can't remember which one of you guys said it, but it wasn't the 50s where it did it. The thing that really began to change, it wasn't the home automation, right? There wasn't the fucking blender or the mixer that did it for women. What it was the right to vote. Okay, in the U.S., right? As people began to have more freedom to express themselves, they felt less constrained by the traditional limitations or the psychosocial mores that existed for like gender roles in the United States. Maybe other countries not the same. There are countries today outside of the United States where women still walk a couple 3 steps behind their men. And that you can divorce your wife simply by saying, fucking, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. Okay. So it's not to say that that's not toxic masculinity in those cases. It's just an example of where the culture or the cultural mores have said that this is acceptable. And unless they change it, that's the way it is. So telling people that they have to do something because your culture, your society has evolved in a stance where women don't have to walk 2 steps behind their husband or their significant other, or whatever you want to call it, that is fine. That's up for them to set up for themselves, okay? It's not toxic because there is a perception or a more that men behave in a certain way relative to women, culturally speaking. Now, as culture evolves and that changes, and women, and by the way, women, it wasn't that society just simply changed and women just said, no more, I'm not going to make your friggin' dinner, I'm going to go to work. World War II happened, okay? And then people found that once freedoms are achieved, they're very difficult to claw back, okay? And so that was the impetus for a lot of the change, the voting rights, the 20th Amendment in the United States to give women the right to vote. As they began to exercise that power, they began to say, well, one set of powers begets other sets of powers. And then you saw, particularly after World War II, women in the United States began to say, you know what, I was able to do this shit while you were overseas. Okay. And now I don't want to go back to just being a housewife. I want to have a job. I want to have a career. So society evolves. And then and in healthy relationships, people sort of make that out. And there's always a transitionary period. Whenever there's a new piece of revolutionary technology that affects society, it takes about 30 years for that technology to sort of work its way through the process. And there's a lot of disruption in that time period. We don't want to look at say that human beings are like the refuse of what happens as societal change happens, but in a moral sense, it does happen. Doesn't make it right, but it's just a path along a continuum. And where we are today is not where we are 100 years ago. Where we're going to be in 100 years is not where we are today. Okay? That doesn't necessarily make it toxic en masse, right? In the general construct. There are instances where there are assholes in the world on male and female sides, right? But that doesn't mean that all of society is fucked up and that we should be labeling people just because they happen to have a penis or they don't have a penis is somehow superior or deficient. And I think that the argument that you guys are taking with a lot of this shit is just missing the whole point that the construct of relationships between men, males and females is really dependent upon what they do and how society generally has evolved over time.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over. We got Sprout Loner, then my Canadian best friend. So we're going to go in that order.
Okay, so I kind of followed what MPU was going through. I don't know why, but the right is taking such bad takes on this that I have to side with the left on this. I have no fucking clue why, but geez, it's not
give a bad
just,
take,
it's not
just so we're
just-
clear.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got it.
It's not just about the household. It's not just about the household. It's not just about how you act inside your house. It's about how you're allowed to react outside the house. It's about how you have to present yourself. If a guy goes out and cries, still today they're treated as less of a man because they have emotions, less of a man because they're an actual fucking human being. And I don't understand why people are. It's just inside the house that we're talking about masculinity. It's not just inside the fucking house. It's out in public. It's on the streets. It's everywhere else.
Sprout, that's not my point. That was if I can respond before anybody else, right? Because I feel like this is a counter to what I said. That's not what I'm saying, right? The notion of masculine or feminine in society is a cultural moray, right? And as society has evolved, the notion of what is masculine or what is acceptably masculine overall in society, that has changed. And yeah, I talked about like how this is like there's a bunch of bumps along the way in order to get to the future state. And there's always going to be that, right? There's always going to be where you have disparate groups who think about things in different ways along whatever that way of thinking is, whether it's gender related, political ideology related. When there's that conflict, okay, there's always a bump in the road for people to work that out. I'm not saying that people who think that there's a traditional male-female role and it only exists in the house or it exists within the workplace or it exists in society at large. I wasn't making that argument. I'm simply saying that as society has evolved, the notion of what it takes to be an effective partner in a relationship, let's just remove, I hate to say it.
What you are doing is
I know what this argument is. I know what this argument is here. It's like the attempt to try to pit males against females, but it's not that. It's about partner v partner, right? And if you seriously are trying to find a balance, it's about a power dynamic that exists between one person and the other within a construct of a relationship.
Someone be masculine.
It doesn't have to be male or female.
Masculine outside of a relationship.
What?
Can someone be masculine outside of a relationship? Then stop talking about fucking relationships. Please, for the love of God, stop talking about relationships. We are talking about
I love you, Sprout. Keep going, Sprout.
Okay. Well, then please continue to edify then.
Who is
I think it was my
Who am
turn.
I edifying? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was Lord Box.
What else is there to say?
No,
He
I
said
think
it all.
just Sigma Sproukus brought up a study earlier. I think I see where the confusion was when it came to reciprocal violence. The sentence that Sproukus read, Sigma Sproukus, was women's physical violence is more likely than men's violence to be motivated by self-defense and fear. So women's physical violence is more likely to be motivated by self-defense and fear. I think that would back up Fabian's point if you read it backwards, but otherwise, no. Women's violence is more likely to be motivated by self-defense and fear, as in they are the ones who are more likely to reciprocate violence. What you didn't mention, Sprout, is that this study was actually written by Max Horkheimer, so that's the problem.
So I just wanted to
Max
interject
sounds a lot
really.
like Marx, Loner
I
Box.
wanted to
Booga, booga, booga. Sorry.
as somebody that Dylan didn't have to mute, I think I can speak for the rest of chat and Dylan when I say that my disappointment is immeasurable, and that we're a bunch of men and we're behaving this way. We can't behave with more rationality and civility. What are we? Are we women? Are we women? Like, we're men, aren't we? Like, we should be able to behave like men. And honestly, like, so shame on everybody that got muted. And I'm a little bit disappointed
Very
in Pixel
sexually
because I thought
pejorative
that
of you.
no problem. I'm a little disappointed in Pixel because I
You're
felt
okay
like she
with it.
embraced some more masculine traits and kind of like assert herself and dominate the conversation a bit more. I think she's made a few like pretty good points. Probably could make some really good salient points too.
Yeah, well, I was just letting the logic come through while we talked about masculinity. I just think it
Yep.
was really important for everybody to perceive that, that
Yeah,
masculinity is holding on, at least on the internet.
What can I say? I think that I changed
No,
my
I
mind.
think
I'm
that's
very
where it's
impressed.
exactly not holding on. But
I'm impressed and proud of you because as a woman, you've known when to not speak.
Oh my no.
jeez,
No.
damn.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
no.
funny
And
though.
with the right
When-
hand, he
when
taketh
the
away.
when the memes don't land.
Oh.
My most masculine behavior is that I am sitting here so hungover, but it's interesting to listen to.
Okay, we're now going to. I think that'll be my signal that we need to move on. And so we're going to have closing statements, and I'm going to give Pixel as much time as they want. Pixel.
Closing statement. Look, I think that for a very long time, women have had no choice in a lot of ways, especially in their relationships with men. And the relationship maybe between the feminine and the masculine. I think Fabian's an idiot if he truly believes that women commit more domestic violence than men, because we had no choice. Like, we couldn't leave marriages. Do you even want to have a conversation about rape? Anyway, that was just ridiculous. I think that so many people in this conversation waffled on about things that don't even matter when it comes to this topic, like Marxism and an eel or a moray. I don't even know what that is. But yeah, I don't think masculinity is under attack. I think there is a cultural shift, and yeah, that's it for me today. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Sprout.
Right. Like I said, traditional masculinity is under attack, and rightfully so. I think we should bring down the number of 69.88% of suicides being men. I think we should bring that down. I think we should allow men to be human beings out in public. I think that that would be a huge plus to society, is to let people express their emotions as they feel them, and not to suppress them deep down inside until it takes them over with depression. Like I said, I don't know why the right part of this panel is so far off, but it's uncomfortable being here with the left. But here I am.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to MPU.
Jesus Christ. Your argument about that somehow 68.5% of the male suicides, or the suicides that are male, is somehow predicated on gender roles and like masculine, feminine fucking problems, is so fucking beyond stupidity. And I'm not questioning the number. Right? But you say it's because of like masculine, the inability to properly express oneself. You know what they said? Women used to not have heart attacks. The rate of heart attacks in women has gone up exponentially since fucking 1960. You know why? Because women started fucking working in higher levels within companies and they had more stress. It isn't masculinity or the lack thereof that causes people to commit fucking suicide. It's the amount of fucking job stress. And listen to shit like coming out of your mouth, Sprout. No, I love you, but you're just out of your fucking tree. Okay, you're out of your fucking tree. This whole fucking conversation about is masculinity under attack? There are some circles in which if you are a man, you are the fucking enemy. And to the extent that those things exist, yes, masculinity is under attack. Okay, and it is under attack. It doesn't mean that you can't be sensitive and that anybody who's sensitive should be able to be masculine enough to push back and say, you know what, I'm supporting the people in my life that fucking matter. Okay, but I have been on the wrong side of masculine behavior, and I've been on the wrong side of fucking misandric behavior. Okay, and it's not good on either side. But to be honest, I didn't ever fucking think I was going to commit suicide for it. Don't be fucking stupid and draw false fucking equivalencies to support your fucked up argument.
Okay, I'm going to throw it now over to Fabian.
Yeah, I said at the onset that anybody that argued that masculinity wasn't under attack is either misinformed or stupid, and I stand by that. The fact of the matter is there's a deeper conversation to be had here, and no one, and I knew that it was going to turn into this, because no one here seems to really be able to go into that, because they either think it's panic if you bring up academic infestation with neo-Marxist philosophy, or they don't want to talk about masculinity as itself. And the problem here really stems from two places, is that the general philosophy of the left works in a dialectic process, and the right, as you've seen clearly shown from More Perfect Union, they have family values. They have specific cultural and religious values. And once they see those institutions eroding away in some capacity, that's when they bark back. When they see the nuclear family not doing as well, or when they see that some of the traditional roles are being changed in some capacity, and that's all of a sudden a problem. Now, when we talk about masculinity under attack, we're not talking about material conditions, right? While I understand some of these things may be tied to material conditions, you can look at that and see maybe that's why some of these changes are occurring. But that's not what the question is asking. The question is there an assault on masculinity as a whole? And I think the real problem here is that people don't understand the psychology here, and the left, especially, even academics, really don't understand this, because they tend to categorize things into groups, find those things within that certain group, find the things that are bad about it, and then try and blow those things and see what we can do to fix that specific thing. And the problem with that is that they don't view the issue holistically of changes that should occur within men as we progress and grow. They don't look at it as an integrative process. So I'll give an example of like one issue that has attacked masculinity that looks good on its face, but is a problem ultimately. Zero tolerance on fighting in schools. This is a very serious threat to masculinity in our generation, because the issue is that there's no differentiation about how one integrates violence as a man. See, the fact of the matter is that if a bully beats up somebody, they're supposed to get the same punishment as the kid that was defending himself or the kid that was protecting someone else. Violence is a necessary element of what it means not only to be a man, but what it means to be a human. Self-defense and violence is very necessary. And so when you attack the ability to engage in any form of violence in school, and instead you say, we're going to treat it as if it's all bullying, what you've done is you've created weak, emasculated boys that are unable to effectively engage in violence for the right reasons, unable to defend themselves, unable to defend other people. And we look at this and we say, well, this is toxic. And the problem is what you've created is cowardly, weak boys that are unable to become men in at least one aspect. And when you see this happening over and over again in the APA's guidelines on boys, like using power and oppression dynamics as a means of trying to understand why a boy might be having a problem instead of engaging with them honestly from a perspective that respects masculinity, you will eventually attack and erode what makes men men. We're not talking about whether or not a guy can cry. We're not talking about whether or not in the 1800s men used to wear high heels and now it's women that wear high heels. These are normal and natural cultural changes and the way that we might express our masculinity. What I'm talking about is core fundamental and psychological issues that attack the ability of men to integrate what some people see as toxic, but as part of a growing process that allows men to be able to become men. And, we heard a couple sayings, and so I'll leave this saying, right? It's better to be a samurai in a garden than it is to be a gardener in a war. You have to learn how to be a monster. You have to learn how to be violent. You have to learn how to be some of these negative traits so you can recognize when is the appropriate time to use these things and when aren't the appropriate times to use these things. And I just don't think that we're able to have an honest conversation about it because it's too much like, oh, this is moral panic. And it's too much about bullet point issues for a debate bro panel.
So I'm going to ask for answers to be snappy going forward, like 30 seconds to a minute for ending and opening statements. Like I said at the start of the show, we'll throw it over to Heem.
Oh my God, it was amazing. I'm so glad you picked me next. Okay, so just to be clear, okay, for everyone watching,
in line.
If Fabian said that it's bad that schools don't let boys beat each other up because it stops them from becoming men, and this is exactly everything I'm against. You also said that we need to learn how to be monsters. Now, listen, I personally have never been in a fight my whole life. I don't know what it feels like to put my fist against someone's face on a hit, right? I don't think that makes me any less of a man. I don't think I'm any less capable of carrying myself in society. When I'm in a situation, I'm not like, oh my God, I don't have experience knowing what it feels like to break someone's bones. Like, how am I going to get past this? The exact thing that Fabian said in that last statement is the exact reason why masculinity is under attack. And a lot of its aspects should be under attack. The part of this attack is just the equalization of women and men, and I think that's a good thing. I can't believe that this is somehow being argued. The reason I brought up the domestic violence thing that we ended up going on a huge tangent with was because I was saying before it used to be that if your woman was out of line, if you didn't hit her, that you were a beta, okay? And society has progressed past that now, and I think that's a good thing. Now, people, as that was happening, that transition, a lot of people would have said, hey, masculinity is under attack. In the same way that some of the people on this panel tonight are saying masculinity is under attack and making it out as a bad thing. What I'm saying is that there are aspects of masculinity which are bad and which should be fucking, it's good that society moves past them. And lastly, I want to say, Sprouticus, welcome to the left. Mission accomplished. We got him.
Okay, now we're going to throw it over to Loner.
Yeah, I think the quote about you should be a monster and it's better to be a samurai in a garden than a gardener in a wood. That's like there's a Joe Rogan segment where he says that. I think I'm pretty sure that's where it came from. It's dumb as fuck. Samwise Gamgee was a gardener in a war. Okay, listen. This is a really old. This is a really like old school. This is like a really like aged fucking myth from like the days of like ancient Rome. Like Julius Caesar, when he was engaging in his early conquests, like he actually wrote about how all these like little tribes in the kind of like north and the northwest, like the Belgae and the Helvetii and the Suebi tribes, about how they were like these really like simple back to basics, like strong men forged out of the hard times and the colder like conditions and the harder lifestyle compared to the Roman soldiers who he thought were being effeminated. He wrote the word effeminated by alcohol and like luxury goods. He said all that and then fucking slaughtered like every tribe he came across. Each one of his Roman soldiers were worth like fucking a dozen of these like hard met tribes because it's a myth. It's always been a myth. I'll give you one more story just about like cultural Marxism, just because it's entered the room, about Frankfurt School. He's talking over me. It's fine. There's a Frankfurt School theorist called Theodor Adorno, who wrote a paper called the Culture Industry, where he basically bitched about like how pop culture was degenerate. It was like feminizing. It was like presenting women as whores, churning out garbage, like destroying like traditional Western like it was like mostly music, and he was talking about 40s jazz, right? This guy was like very, very traditionalist, and so I think one of the other Frankfurt School theorists was as well. But when Adorno was giving a lecture, a feminist group of 3 women stormed in, flashed him, waved their bras and underwear, and threw it over his head, and then like left. So they just trashed his lecture, and then not long after that, he had a heart attack and died. So yeah, feminism and even neo-Marxism has like, these people have been at odds for a while. They actually, brocialists is a word that feminists will use for like toxic male like socialists. Yeah, because progressivism has always been a very fractured and very split church. Just because people have like, I don't know, some people like equality because they got it from like the French Revolution, and that they have influence from Marx, or they have influence from neo-Marx. Like, yeah, this is just it's just a convenient way to ascribe everything you don't like to one person, and it's very beta. Sorry.
Okay, I'm now going to throw it over to my Canadian friend.
Thank you. And I'm going to do my best to try to keep it short because I'm a man that listens. I think it's really unfortunate that we couldn't have a talk free of these boogeymen and these buzzwords. But I think another thing that made it difficult, probably for everybody on here, I might be speaking for the chat. I'm going to hazard the risk of speaking for the chat and everybody else. But every time that MPU and Fabian talked, I could feel my brain going on vacation and my eyes glazing over. I think.
Oh, I thought you were still actually on vacation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. I'm also just really glad that we avoided things like hegemonic masculinity and things like sexual theory and crime and all these things. But I think one thing that we've overlooked is that masculinity is good. If we didn't have masculinity, how would women be able to kill spiders and scorpions and things like that? I don't think we really disagreed that
They
much. So
would
maybe in the
tear
future
their
we can.
heart out.
I'm glad we didn't disagree that much. So maybe we can in the future talk about how to reform actual culture to kind of isolate these things that are bad about masculine characteristics and maybe have a good substantive conversation.
Okay, and Adam.
Right. So, as I said, I'm just going to restate my points. And so basically, I don't perceive this as an attack on masculinity. I think this is just society, changing society on the move. Nothing particular to see here. And also, my point stands. This is a complete moral panic, and people who sort of go against this natural societal change. They since this is a moral panic, it's completely incoherent. And it's not based in reality at all. As like, please consider the definition that Fabian gave to Marxism early on, which was complete gobbledygook. Like, what even was that? The correct response to my question to what is Marxism would be like, what the fuck do you mean? There's multiple Marxism, there's multiple schools of thoughts. What aspects of Marxism? So anyway, it's completely natural process, and masculinity has, of course, some very helpful, beneficial aspects, just like femininity. But there is also such thing as toxic masculinity and also toxic femininity. Let's not forget about that, which we should work towards excising from our cultural zeitgeist. And that's my point.
Wonderful. We're now going to move on to the next topic. The next topic is Mickey Mouse a libcuck, communist, trans, non-binary leftoid, or a goose-stepping Proud Boy? Which one? I don't know. Is Disney too woke? Obviously, the discussion around the Don't Say Gay bill has gotten Disney involved due to a lot of its donations to politicians and its statement they released. So my question is very simple. Is Disney too woke? And I'm going to throw it to the most reasonable person on the panel first. Fabian, you want to open us up?
Yeah. So Disney is probably too woke for some people, not woke enough for others. This again shows how conservatives, especially the GOP, will talk about freedom and free markets, but the moment something goes against their family values, they will use the power of the state immediately and instantly to punish those that they see are their enemies, right? Disney, and since I think it's like 1968, has had their own county, their own kind of like level of local governance. And now that Ron DeSantis has created the Parental Rights in Education HB 1557 bill, a great bill, doesn't go far enough, all of a sudden they want to use the power of the state to try and punish Disney because Christopher Rufo showed that there's some crazy people that work at Disney that were panicking about the quote unquote don't say gay bill. The real thing here is that conservatives need to recognize that there's two major problems here. Number one, they have to stop giving money to companies if they don't value them. Just don't fucking go to Disney World. If you don't like their fucking values, then stop giving them fucking money. And number two, what we need to talk about, which is something that we can't really combat, is the real reason why a lot of these large corporations are going woke. And that's ESG. ESG is the real thing that we should be focusing on here, because the problem isn't per se just one small level of indoctrination of a couple woke people at a company. The problem is that the entire market is being captured by secondary stakeholders and not shareholders in giving companies these ESG ratings that are totally fucking bullshit. And they're and it's allowing the market to force companies in a way to engage in woke capitalism and rainbow capitalism as a means of trying to up their ESG score. There's no fucking reason that, for example, Tesla should have a low ESG score and Nike should have a much higher ESG score, right? It's rainbow capitalism, diversity, inclusion, and a lot of these woke philosophies are being pushed into ESG. And then companies like Vanguard and BlackRock and wealthy investors and things like that are using this as a means to determine risk, and banking institutions as well.
Okay. Him?
Okay, so from my understanding, it seems like this is, I think we're obviously probably going to talk a lot about the bill itself. I'm sure we'll get into it, but I think that a lot of times these companies they'll do the rainbow capitalism when it's convenient for them, but they never really have to actually stand for it. And I think it's good in this situation that they had to put their money where their mouth is and actually stand by it and suffer some economic consequences of it. I'm generally not for all of these corporations having tax benefits and whatnot, but in this specific case, when I looked into it a little bit, it turns out that the reason Disney has this tax loophole is because they have their own services. They have their own firefighters. I think they have their own waste management services, so they don't rely on the municipality for that. And I mean, it kind of makes sense if you're going to handle all of that yourself, that you don't really pitch in for the tax in that part. And apparently what they're saying now is, now that tax loophole is gone, that it's going to fall on the shoulders of people who live around Disney World to pay for it through their property taxes. So it's actually not going to really affect the people who go to Disney World so much as it is going to affect the people who live around Disney World. But in general, I think it's nice to see, I think a lot of companies do this, where they'll like pretend to be progressive, but they'll fall short when it actually comes time to put their money where their mouth is. So I mean, fuck, it's interesting to see. As for the Don't Say Gay bill, I read it on stream. It's only 7 pages. I recommend everyone take some time to read it. It's really like obscurely written, and one thing that bothers me about the bill itself is there's a part of it where it says, like, I'm just going to read it real quick, okay? A school district cannot adopt procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying a parent about his or her student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being. So they're basically saying that you have to tell the parents everything. And that's kind of like where the teachers are getting nervous a little bit, that like, what if a student comes and tells me they're gay and, now I have to tell their parent or whatever. But there's also this sentence at the end that kind of gives them an out. It says, this subparagraph does not prohibit a school district from adopting procedures that permit a school personnel to withhold information from a parent if a reasonably prudent person would believe that disclosure of the above would result in abuse, abandonment, neglect, and as those terms are defined in some other bill. So, it's kind of like they have an out, like, oh, if there's if you think there's going to be abuse or neglect, that you can withhold it, but otherwise you can't. So I don't know. It's very like vague, I guess, is the worst part about it.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over now to Loner.
Yeah, that paragraph you just mentioned, him in the Don't Say Gay bill, is like, it's so to me, it's like it's so transparent just because when I compare it to the guidelines for where I come from, which is just if the child says no, don't tell. Because you're basically in a situation where it's like if a child comes out as gay to you and they've told you before telling the parents, then you'd probably want to think like, okay, why, you know? And then you might ask, you're encouraged to get the family involved, but if the kid says no, then that's a good enough reason. It's too much of a risk to like do that against their will. Whereas if you're doing it in Florida, you're going to have to explain to a judge why you're a reasonably prudent person and why the child's word was your reason to not tell. It's really fucked up. Like I'd be shitting myself. Like, yeah, I would just tell the parents everything. But under those circumstances, but Disney, yeah, I don't know. Disney's like they've always had some kind of like they can't not. They're for kids, and they're always going to have some kind of like socializing effect when they're that big. Whether it was like I don't know, back when Walt himself was like, I don't know, arguably a bit of a fascist. And like when the stories back then were like, I don't know, man saves probably underage girl by like kissing her in her sleep, which is, you know, definitely not grooming. Yeah, I fucking like it's, I don't really know how much it is to do with like manipulation or like people behind the scenes pulling strings. I think woke capitalism happens because you know the majority of American people are going in that direction like so yeah they and the fact that like corporations are so much more like under the microscope right now in terms of public appearances, they have to keep up an image. As far as the don't say gay bill goes, like I think it was like 6 in 10 Americans are against it, so it would make sense for corporations to kind of like you know go with what's more popular. So yeah.
Okay, I am now going to throw it over to Adam.
Right. So yeah, all this goes back to profit, and Disney going woke, so to speak, is not the result of some satanic cabal. Like not satanic in some circles, yes, but here it's like the neo-Marxist, whatever, higher academia cabal. It's just capitalism. It's just a profit motive. Corporations, especially Disney, have armies of sociologists and analysts working for them, determining every step of the way, like what words they should use, what they should say here, what statement should they make there, and you know there's a neat flow chart. Oh look, if we say this, then this is the biggest number that we get at the end. Oh look, oh cool, let's do that. Corporations do this and only this. The only thing corporations are interested in is making money, as I'm sure our ANCAP friends are aware of. Also, rainbow capitalism is always this exact same thing. It's not some you know higher academia ideologues or you know Jews, depending on how you ask, imposing their will on the purity on this pure capitalist system and corrupting it. It's just this ESG. One sec. This ESG system and all these like rainbow capitalism, what you would call rainbow capitalism, is just the result of profit-seeking behavior because most people are progressive, and that's it.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to my Canadian fellow.
Thank you, my American friend.
Diplomacy.
So I just want to say at the very start, I fucking love rainbow capitalism. I've never heard of it until tonight, but to me, it sounds pretty base.
I mean, neither. It's like Marxism.
Any kind of capitalism that covers or like compensates for the failures and shortcomings of like laissez-faire, like cringe and cap shit gets my vote. I think it's amazing that consumers and public can affect companies such that through like market mechanisms, they're able to impact the decisions of these companies so that we see that like lo and behold, we can actually do kind of flavors of like ethical capitalism. It's crazy, especially with this ESG. ESG is imperfect. It does need tweaking and like a bit of updating and a lot more open conversation, but it is kind of a base mechanism. I think the bill needs to be amended, but I think if we do get into the nitty gritty of the bill, some of the ideas, the abstract notions, kind of link into what we know about the neurodevelopmental stages. So it kind of makes a little bit of sense. But I do think it's worth mentioning that Disney wasn't always woke. They should probably stay out of things politically, by and large. I think money in politics is kind of a bad thing. I think other countries have done it better than the U.S. I do think it is kind of funny that when these companies do update, include, or add whatever kind of progressive policy, it always gets shit on by pretty much everybody as being just opportunistic and about profit and blah blah blah.
Okay, I'm now going to throw it over to Pixel and their lovely poodle or dog.
Who was about to, yep. I think this actually will be an interesting conversation because so many people are taking it in different directions already. But for me, I grew up with Disney. I'm just going to speak from a personal point of view to start with because I feel like Disney, and especially Disney's place in society, is quite formative. Because kids watch Disney growing up, and what Disney represents to a lot of kids is kind of the values that they idolize. Like for me, when I was growing up and watching Disney, I was sold a story that one day you grow up and then you meet a man and then you live happily ever after, the end. Whereas now kids are getting to grow up with, you know, Frozen, where it represents sisters supporting sisters, and the whole thing wasn't about finding a man to love you. Like I think Disney being woke, or at least you know, attempting to display something other than what was traditionally seen as a happily ever after story, is a really good thing for kids. Like Encanto and like some of the other movies that have come out have been so good for I think kids. So I hope that we get to talk about Disney's place in kind of the social framework and how it can be a good thing. I'm no Disney simp, by the way, but like, I don't know. I think they have a pretty major role in the way society develops.
Okay, I'm going to throw it now over to Sprout.
All right, so I'm gonna use the first time, last time rule. So is that still a thing, Dylan?
Yes,
First
yes,
time, last time?
you can still mention the last topic during the intro of this topic. Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, now MPU wanted to bring up the fact that he's had to control his emotions and he's had to do this, and it didn't make him think of suicide. That is literally the most disingenuous comment to what I was saying that there possibly is.
No, MPU.
So with that being said, you are causing more men to commit suicide by saying shit like that than anything else you could have possibly said during that. You are causing more men to commit suicide. It's absolutely fucking disgusting. You'll hear my points about Disney and the actual thing. I just wanted to use my opening to say that.
Sigma.
MPU, you're next.
You're muted.
Okay, so it's like this, right? A, not topical. B, not incorrect. C, Disney basically made all of his money by stealing ideas from other fucking people. The Brothers Grimm, African American fucking story, history, and stuff like that. Yeah, okay, let's go ahead. Let's talk about what the guy is. Okay, the fact that he was promoting these things as an idealistic vision of what he thought American culture was, and he was able to grift off of that and make money. I don't really have a problem, right? That's capitalism. What he did with Reedy Creek is he basically said, I will build all of this shit in Central Florida, which was a fucking swamp, okay, in the mid-late 60s when he did this shit. I'll build Disney World. I'll make it a place that'll bring a shitload of money to the state, and that's why they gave him the fucking free reign for it, okay? They don't need, basically, right, and everybody on the left seems to be like, well, we don't like people subsidizing fucking big business, okay, but they're all pissed off because Disney's fucking going to lose their special tax status. Guess what that means? Liberals, Disney has to pay more fucking taxes. Oh, and by the way, the corollary for that is that all taxes really aren't paid by the company. They're paid by the people who fucking consumed the service. So guess what? The cost of a fucking e-ticket in Disney is going to go up about fucking 25%. That may have a negative impact on fucking Disney's ability to make money in Central Florida. Or is it going to be enough for them to leave? Probably not. Okay. That probably not. And by the way, don't ever fucking accuse me, Sprouticus, of fucking doing something that's going to cause anybody to have a fucking desire to kill themselves. That's just fucking stupid. And you should fucking be ashamed of yourself as a fucking service member, talking to a former service member, that anybody would have that. You're fucking out of bounds.
What you said I
like you, okay, but you're fucking completely out of bounds.
What you
Hey,
said will cause that, whether intentional or not. What you said will cause men to have more suicidal ideations because you
that's
were
not how
bullshit.
Sprout.
That
we,
you
we
say
know
it
that,
and
no,
you're not
guys,
a fucking psychiatrist is out of bounds.
It's intro statements. We don't talk over each other in intro statements. We're now going to go into the topic. Now, on the topic of Disney, it has to be Disney now. We're in the topic itself. Who wants to start us off? There you go. You can go.
All right. Big ups to these two guys for acting like men and knowing when to not talk about the same thing and go into the new subject. Respect. So I think it's something to consider. Like, where do we really want to talk about this? Like, I think most people are going to agree that the bill in its current form is too vague. I think that there's a lot of different directions you could take that, and I think that there's also a really good conversation to be had where we talk about the influence of money in politics. Like, what right does Disney as a company, because most countries outside of the US, like, I really think that it is nonsensical that Disney's involved in this and to the degree that they are, because the market should be like existing like outside of like political sphere and like government and policy and things like that, right? They should be more or less like separate to some degree.
I didn't know if you were done talking. I didn't know if you were done
That's a
talking.
long pause. Yeah.
So, no, I think that Disney should be able to do what Disney's going to do as a corporation. I think there's many corporations on the right that do the same exact thing. They support the causes they believe in. I think Disney is just supporting the causes they believe in. This is what happens in a capitalist society. And I'm sorry for people on the right that think that that's not what should happen, but this is what happens. This is what happens in capitalism, where businesses are allowed to contribute to causes in which they believe in. And the market.
Yep, you know,
What?
there's capitalism right there, muting
What
him
the
because that
fuck?
was such a brain dead take.
No, you're
you just-
censoring him in the middle of a fucking
No.
incredible take. What
Wait,
is this?
I
That
don't
was
know.
a
what-
Sigma
terrible
exit.
I don't know what happened there. Moving and shaking, I assume. Who wants to
Blame
continue?
Biden.
Look,
I'll
I'm gonna go
continue.
next,
I'll
and I
continue.
can prove like there's two things that are a big issue here. I don't know what
The
world,
GOP got him.
no, I
Sorry.
don't know what world the panelists are living on here where they think that this is the majority of the country. 55% of Democrats in Florida support the Parental Rights and Education Bill, HB 1557. Okay, this is not Disney matching the consumers of America. America's not this fucking woke. What's this woke is like Twitch politics and like social media. The majority of Americans that actually spend money and go to Disneyland are also older individuals that take their family there. This is not about supporting that. Second of all, if this was about their actual values, then what the fuck do they have to say about Japan? Okay, because in Japan, it's still gay marriage is still illegal in Japan. And yet they have no fucking problem spending money and having a park in Japan.
They have no
and talking
control
with people.
there.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have, so they have this magic control here in America. Are you saying that
Yeah,
Disney's
it's called their
taking over the
their
government
sp-
institutions?
It's
No,
called
what I'm saying.
America
Go
is
ahead,
more
Adam.
free. Yes, like so. America is much more free market than Japan, and more is permitted to corporations in America than in Japan. So hey, if you want to make the anti-NCAP argument, I'm fully with you, dude.
It's not an anti-ANCAP argument. Like
Yeah,
make your
more
argument about
state
meme.
control, more state control on what corporations can and can't do with regards to politics. Hell yeah,
Disney
dude.
absolutely could be talking shit about Japan right now. They have enough power and they have enough money in Japan where Japan's not going to kick them out because they
But-
release a statement saying we don't
That
agree
is-
with the fact.
But
that
why would? But
No, but what
if
do you think their
did,
chances are going to be of
That is an
influencing Japanese
assertion
government
of
policy?
that is an assertion of cowardice. You're saying that because they lack economic power in Japan or even China, where they have a massive amount of financial impact, that because they lack the political the financial strength in those countries, that they shouldn't still take the stand. They shouldn't stand up for a cause they believe in, as Nike says, believe in some, even if it costs you everything. It
But why
seems
would
like
they?
to me, it seems to me that Disney is okay with standing
Sounds
up
like
to
you guys
things
are
where
saying
they
it's
think
not-
that they can stop.
Let him
It
finish.
sounds like you
Let him
guys are
finish.
saying it's
Let him
not
finish.
woke
Let him
enough.
finish.
Stop. They seem to be okay with challenging things because it seems to be politically correct to do so in this country, but they're okay with Uyghur genocide in China. They're okay with the fucking racist shit that goes on in fucking Japan and other countries. Okay.
Yes,
So you're
yes.
saying,
Let-
so you're
let-
saying they're not
let
woke.
So
us
almost
not
like-
let us not be okay, morally bankrupt in the thought of saying that Disney is somehow being morally upright about challenging this law that I guarantee you that 55% of the people that who look at woke media, they say that this thing is okay. That's not what it's not a don't say gay bill. It's like don't indoctrinate fucking kids under the age of fucking 9 years old. That's what it says. Okay.
Can I jump in about
it's almost
there was
like
a bit
just,
of
go ahead. Sorry.
there was a bit of dispute about whether or not the majority of Americans oppose or support the Don't Say Gay. So Fabian, you mentioned 55% of people in Florida oppose.
Please stop calling it what it isn't.
Okay, it's
Call
the
it by the law.
it's the
Call it by-
anti-democratic
call it by the
pedophile
bill.
groomer.
Call it by the bill's
Marxist.
name, or read the entire
Theodore
fucking bill
Horkheimer, Karl
so that
Marx.
everybody who is listening can hear it. Do not call it what it isn't.
Okay, it's the I don't care.
Getting tilted.
so-
He's getting tilted.
It's not about being,
Sorry,
it's not
sorry.
about being tilted, right? It's
Excuse me.
about using a buzzword to try to sway opinion. When you say that a lot of people agree
I'm
with
not
your
worried.
assertion, and your assertion is based on a fucking lie, then okay, fine. Well,
Listen,
a lot of people believe a lie.
Listen, a big strong man like yourself, a big hard man like yourself can hear the words "don't say gay" and probably not risk getting swayed on your opinion on the bill. Fabian, you were saying 55% of people in Florida oppose the bill, but then the
No,
point was
Democrats.
Democrats. Okay. Okay.
The left,
So
55.
No,
so, okay.
55%
So,
support.
but then obviously, Florida is not like the whole of the United States. Yeah, like the only poll I've got for like for America is that the majority of Americans oppose the bill. But I don't need to. I can just grant you then. Let's say that Disney are doing it against popular will. We can just go with that. Well, then that's very normal for companies to do as well. Like Rupert Murdoch admits to losing money on a lot of his projects because he wants to spread a message. The Daily Wire and PragerU, I imagine, are probably not going to make that much money off of their PragerU kids, Daily Wire, whatever, like,
Right.
not grooming. Well, it's not grooming, whatever they're trying to do to education as well. So, yeah, as far as people being upset that Disney are going to pay more taxes, personally, I don't care. Fuck, whatever.
These
Can I-
companies
can I-
will.
Yeah, I mean,
real
that's
quick?
not really a
Wait.
retort to me. It's like, okay.
Sorry, the whole sorry. So you guys are saying that Disney's too woke, right? But at the same time, you're saying that why aren't they being more woke about Japan or whatever the other issues? So you're actually saying that they're not too woke?
No, you are making my point, right? They're woke in America because it's politically correct to do that. You get a lot of fucking political cover to do it here.
Okay,
but they won't stand up to somebody like China where they see it as an emerging market for them, and they refuse, just like the NBA, Major League Baseball, and a lot of other fucking massive corporations in the US. They will not challenge atrocities that are conducted in other countries because they're afraid of losing the almighty fucking dollar.
Okay, I got you. Okay. So do you think that they should just do nothing in America where like this is a local thing, right? This isn't even a national thing.
It is a local
this
thing.
is literally local.
It is a local thing, but
to
70%, 70+% of the people in Florida
they should
support
do
the
nothing.
bill.
Wait one second.
So it's really
wait,
up to
just
Florida.
a real
It's not
quick
for
yes or no. Just a
Canada.
yes or no. So you're telling me that if you have
It is the states' rights
if you
issue
can't
for
change the
them.
whole world, that you can't make a stand in your local municipality?
Nobody is saying, nobody is
I think the problem. Hang on, let me answer. Yes, the question. I think the question, right, is that if you are unwilling to at least voice your concern within the construct of other countries that you deal with who have other problems, then you are a fucking moral coward. And I think Disney is a moral fucking coward.
I have a totally different point. Here's my argument.
There's a link. I just posted a link in the chat of Disney in Japan where they had a gay wedding at their park, just so you know. So if you're going to call them moral cowards, you might
Did they? That's
fucking base.
They're totally
fucking
They haven't said anything about Uyghur genocide, and they haven't said anything about Uyghur genocide.
One second. They have to speak.
Pixel Mixel. Hold on.
I'm sorry. I get that there's an
Wait. Stop. Everybody stop.
And then like watching people be slaughtered. I get it.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Dylan.
Okay. So I'm going to wake up the local Polish government and they're going to come arrest me, okay? So before I get arrested in Poland, I'm going to ask people to please don't derail like that, like fucking a bunch of psychopaths. We're going to sit down here and all be homophobic like civilized people, okay? Wonderful. I believe Fabian wanted to respond to Pixel. Then we have Adam on the list. We have Beers on the list. And I'm going to put MPU on the list.
Raise my hand for a minute.
Pixel
Okay,
Mixel.
I'll put you up.
So, yeah. unlike a lot of other people, I'm not gonna move the goalposts so that I can like continuously appear like I won. Yo, if they did a fucking gay wedding in fucking Japan, that's base as fuck. And if they're supporting the fucking lower courts ruling on Article 24, more power to you. I didn't know they did that, and I'll take that fucking L any day. However, my argument is again about ESG. My argument isn't that Disney is talking to the market specifically, but instead what is occurring is that we have something that is infecting our ability to produce effectively, right? And what that is that there are a lot of stakeholders and there are a lot of organizations and even banking institutions, Wachovia being one of them, that determine whether the risk that they give in loaning and their effect in the market based off of their economic, social, and corporate governance capacity. The problem being is that you can look at these statistics and you can tell that they're bullshit. Oh, sorry, environmental, not economic. Environmental, right? Because a company like Nike that's still involved in the ready-made garment industry has a much, much better score on environmental, social, and governance in most of these ESG scores than Tesla that makes electric cars. And the fact of the matter is that the social aspect is increasingly becoming more about diversity and inclusion. And the governance aspect is also becoming more about diversity and inclusion. And what is occurring is that we are allowing our markets to be determined by specific investors and wealthy organizations to force companies, if they want lower rates and better investment, to adopt rainbow capitalist bullshit policies and hire insane people that go into their company like Disney and say things like, as we saw in the video, that Republicans were going to come for their children and that they were going to criminalize the existence of all gay people in America. When you have people freaking the fuck out in closed meetings saying that Republicans were going to criminalize their existence as a gay person and shit like this, it's hysteria, and it might be good for the short-term profits because of the fucked up incentive structure of ESG and of like the woke cancel mob on Twitter. But if we have an economic downturn and these people are not focused on actually producing good products, what we're going to do is intentionally harm our economy in the name of wokeness.
Why do you think they use those ESGs?
What do you mean by they? Do you mean Disney?
Like
investors? Like
why
why does
are
Vanguard use them?
investors? Like why do they look at ESGs? Like why?
Okay, so ESGs are supposed to be one indicator of the health of a company, and one of the best arguments that ESGs actually have, right, to prop them up, is they were able to predict. They were able to predict problems with Enron like a year before the stock fell, and they were also able to predict problems with Facebook like a year before the stock fell. And they were able to do this because they were looking at like data privacy in Facebook and other things like that. The problem is they're increasingly becoming more and more woke, and it's less and less to do. It's less and less attached to what the American consumer actually wants, and it's instead a political problem.
I'm kind of curious.
So wait, sorry, can I just respond? Wait, I want to engage with him
quickly, but Adam has been waiting for a while.
Okay, so my point is, you're saying that they're becoming less and less effective or less and less telling of what the consumers want. Don't you think that if this is the case, that people will just stop leaning on them as a metric to use? That the investors will realize this, that it's not an issue, that it'll sort itself out?
I mean,
or do you think that every company, or do you think every company is going to go
free market? In a free market, that would be what would work. But unfortunately, we don't have a free market.
Especially given that ESGs right now. So
there's a difference between a perfectly free market and a free market, right? Information exchange is imperfect even in the best markets. So the fact that the argument you're making, Haim, is that eventually, all other things being equal, right? Adam Smith, all other things being equal, yeah, you're fat, dumb, and happy, and everybody understands what's going on. The problem is there's a lag between this information, somebody correlating this information into specific performance. So you can't just simply say
might be a quarter or two behind. Who cares?
No, well, I think as Fabian actually pointed out here, it's like a year or more in advance, right? People are too short-term focused for that kind of shit. We're worried about what the next fucking drama is on Twitch.
Okay, so if it's short-term focused, then that means that it'll sort itself out. If one quarter they were too woke,
it doesn't,
and they didn't make money. Yes,
people's attention spans are not long enough. That's his point.
The investors' attention spans is not long enough.
What I'm talking about is in order to compete in an ESG market, companies are engaging more and more in rainbow capitalism and more with hiring woke dumbasses in their fucking companies that are going to hurt their productivity in the long term, because there's
Then
a
let the
certain
market
critical
take care
mass.
of
Why
the
does this
market.
matter?
So let the
Okay,
market take care of the market.
Wait.
If you're
Love
saying-
that. Were you
so if you're
around?
saying-
I know you're a young kid, but were you around in 2009? The market didn't take care of the market. The government bailed them out. Like,
Okay, that is something
Okay,
entirely
so
separate from
let the
ESG.
market take care of the market. If you're
Yeah,
saying
like, this is
if
such a
you're
bad
saying what they're doing is going to critically fail in the long term, then let it critically fail in the long term. There are companies that the right praises for using their dollars for political movements here in the United States, such as Chick-fil-A, such as Hobby Lobby, such as Home Depot. We can move forward with that if you want to, but such as those three companies, they're praised for using their money for political strides in the United States. But when someone against, and it happens on the left too, but when someone someone goes against your political ideals because they want to give money to certain politicians, all of a sudden it's a bad thing. If you don't want to go to Disney anymore, don't go to Disney. If you don't want to buy Disney movies anymore, don't buy Disney movies. But I'm not going to sit here and say that Disney cannot follow its own moral standings and decide that it wants to support something, even if it's
who's
even
saying
it,
that?
I mean, it sounds like both
Who's
you
making
and
that argument?
MPU. It sounds like both
No.
you and MPU.
No, what we're calling out is inconsistency and corruption in the market. That's what we're calling out. We're not calling out whether or not people should or shouldn't choose to buy Disney. We're saying that this is an overarching problem in our culture and in our economy that is going to bite us if we don't pay attention
conservative
to
companies-
the
if
fucked
I
up
may,
incentives.
How do conservative
Real quick.
companies exist then? How did they keep moving? Because I'm sure by your standards they don't have good ESGs. So how do they exist? How do they keep moving? Like, I'm curious.
Especially
not saying
given,
that at all.
given that sustainable investing, like, it only accounts for like a third of U.S. assets, right? So like if they're so economically detrimental, then why don't shareholders just fuck off from them? You know.
Plus, not to mention,
Well,
Fabian,
that's kind of the
if,
intent,
Fabian,
right?
if
Adam-
you think about it,
What
may I-
ESG score does, right?
Adam has
Sorry,
been
go
waiting
ahead.
for so long.
Like,
Adam,
Yeah, no,
so not to mention, Fabian, like, you are worried about companies, hiring these woke dumbasses, and then that's hurting companies in the long term. But then, should it, by your logic, so that will, according to your logic, that would cause hard times, as it was the financial crisis, which will then produce strong capitalists, right?
No.
So strong corporations. Why, dude?
I'm not engaging with the meme.
Good
Make your argument.
Yeah, well, okay. So then, the second. What was the other thing you said? The left freaking out. I'm sorry, it was so long ago. You made an argument that the left are freaking out that conservatives are trying to indoctrinate their children. If you remember, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I was saying that one of the woke people in the company, in the Christopher Rufo, like, that kind of started the whole woke Disney thing, wasn't just that they came out against the Don't Say Gay bill, but it was like all the leaked videos of them talking about it, right? And they said that the conservatives were going to criminalize being gay, and that they were going to take away their children, and that it was a slippery slope, and they were going to come take them away and put them in prison. That's what they were.
Isn't that the same thing you're doing though, with like the woke Marxists coming for our children?
hyperbole, but
No,
But
it's not.
but my problem is that
No, you just want to call something a moral panic, and anytime someone talks about it or says, like, here are some of the links you could look at, you
Wait,
go,
But
well,
that's
that
the
sounds
same
crazy.
thing.
Moral
That's the same-
panic.
What you're accusing the left of a moral panic, but here it's you who's
yes,
perpetuating
literally,
it.
that's
So
what I was.
in what
that's
way
one of
am
the
I
main things I
engaging
wanted
in a
to say to
moral
him.
panic? Give me one
Because
example.
you are saying
spreading-
because you're saying that academia has been overrun by Marxists and corporations are being overtaken by these insane SJWs, and that gobbledygook.
But we have evidence for all of
Okay,
these
so
things. We don't have
so
evidence
people-
of fucking conservative death squads coming after gay people.
We do have
So
evidence
people
of
in the
conservative
news media-
SJWs
Wait,
trying to
can
influence
we
media,
not-
though, right?
I really wanted to respond.
people
to
in
that.
the
I really
news-
wanted to-
wait. Okay, so I'm gonna throw it over to my Canadian fellow because he's next on the list, and it's MPU. Then it's Proud.
Great, thank you. I want to echo what Adam said. That's one thing I wanted to say. Like, let me preface this because I'm not on the left in this conversation. I want to preface this with, I think the market forces at play are a good thing, and that the mechanisms of like capitalism are showing like how awesome and badass it is. But at the same time, you cannot deny, like, surely you do have the self-awareness that you are pushing this like moral panic about ESG investing and like the ESG rating services or like agencies as being something like, whoa, dude, like if we let this keep going forward, it's gonna bite us in the ass. Something really bad is gonna happen, man. Like this is literally a moral panic. Specifically about the rainbow capitalism. Like I don't know how you don't see that you're using these buzzwords and honing in on ESG investing as a moral panic, because overall these are net good, and they're not necessarily even like conservative or like left leaning, right? When you look into the actual ballots that get presented to the companies for the shareholders to approve or deny, majority of them don't get approved. And also there's something like in 2015 alone, there was over like 24 that fell under like conservative points of like protections for the board members and things like that fell under like governance and social.
I think you can also point to the fact that because I knew someone who worked in like corporate governance kind of stuff, and I think ESG came up once or twice, and like I think they're really badly kept secret about this whole idea that we're actually like we're not putting profit first, we're putting like the environment or like social values, all. But it's like, but it turns out that actually behaving in that way, and very importantly, publicly behaving in that way, is actually quite a good market. Like that's why I think there was a report from like 2015 from Oxford that showed that like ESG, the companies that get involved with ESG actually like turn out good results. So it's like, yeah, but again, if we're talking about media, like whether a media outlet is run by a conservative or like a liberal, like it's going to be quite like difficult to not have them use that money and maybe ditch a bit of the profit to push a political message, because that's what they've always done. I guess it's a good argument for workplace democracy. Who knows? I do wonder though, like I do wonder if this can be James Lindsay's like second book where he calls it like corporate Marxism. That would be a funny title.
We should differentiate though here between corporations that are run by like a more by like a single person, or like organizations run by a single person, and corporations which are like run by this big board member, boards and whatnot. So PragerU was brought up as an example previously. That's Dennis Prager's shtick. Daily Wire, this Ben Shapiro's, like, so these organizations will inherently respond differently to these sort of social pressures than like Disney. Like Disney is not run by one person, we should just keep this in mind.
Who's breathing so hard?
I don't know.
Me, goddammit, because I'm supposed to be fucking speaking.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we can speak.
All right, I'm ready for your novel.
I say it once again. I say eventually. That's the key word.
It's a very masculine
Okay,
interjection.
look, thank you. It's very heavy breathing. I'm very proud of it. I've had it all my life. Okay, just a couple points. Media, anybody in the media, particularly the news media, that carps about this bill, where they say that this bill is going to result in the death of children, right? It's been all over the national news media, is just about as fucked up and unbased as Sprout saying that me speaking up about what I was talking about for masculinity, okay, oh, sorry, you can't see that because it's fucking fading out, is somehow going to lead to more fucking suicides. It's just stupid. Sometimes the hyperbole of the argument is just completely fucking off base. Stop with the stupid shit, please.
I'll keep that in mind for the next topic.
Just please do. Just keep it in mind for this one.
Hilariously. Pixel, please.
Oh no, that's the consequences of the lawmaking that is going on in Florida right now are absolutely that kids will die, especially LGBTQIA plus youth. They absolutely will. Imagine
How many
growing
of
up.
those are there under the age of 9?
That's not the only thing the bill goes after, and I think you know that, NPU. The bill is
That's the primary. No, that's the primary thing. And there are relatively few people that actually fall under the other category, which
Okay, okay, stop. Okay,
what you do.
Okay, you guys are at each other's throats today. I'm gonna have, but because you both talked at the same time, the classic point. When two people talk at the same time, you don't get double the information. You get none of the information. So I'm going to have Sprout say what he was trying to say, then MPU say what he was trying to say. But wait, before that, Pixel, did you get to finish what you were saying?
It's fine.
No, Pixel, please.
I don't understand how More Perfect Union can't see that Disney being pro like LGBT is actively making these children more comfortable, and the constant barrage from the government to be like against that is absolutely going to result in the deaths of children. And
How?
So
Yeah.
moving. So now I think it's my turn.
Wait,
though.
there was a question directed at her. I wanted to be able to respond,
okay.
but I will bring it
just
back
wanted
to you
back
guys.
up.
Because
Any
seeing
others?
some representation or like people being accepting of who you are is a very good thing.
So you
That's
agree
the
that there are
stupidest fucking-
LGBTQ?
That is the stupidest argument for this particular
kindergartners?
bill I've ever heard.
But
I just want to nail you down on that. You believe there are LGBTQ
You guys are literally
kindergartners?
both asking
The
questions.
bill
at the same
follows
time.
the
Okay.
kindergarten.
Okay, wait, stop. Let Pixel respond.
It has nothing to do with kindergarteners. It's so funny that the conservatives always try and pin it down to like the fact
bill?
that Disney is. Yeah, it's up until grade 3, and you think people have no acknowledgement of sexuality before then? Are you fucking kidding me?
So you think not having classes, not having lesson plans specifically about gender identity and sexual orientation given to children in 3rd grade is
It wasn't
going
just
to
about
lead to the
lessons.
suicide of children? No,
It
you're
wasn't
allowed
just
to.
about the lessons. I read the
I've read the
piece
bill
of,
too.
bill.
There's nothing in the
And
bill
I-
that says you can't
So I have to-
fucking
should I read it again?
read it as much as you want. There's nothing
I
in the
can
bill.
read it
that-
again. Okay, let me read it. A school district may not adopt procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying a parent about his or her student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, or are in charge of related services or monitoring. Where in there does there say anything about a lesson?
Dude, you literally it says a lesson plan that's
No,
what
not-
the K through 3.
no, there's-
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And were you listening? Should I read it again? Maybe.
Dude, you're reading one section of the bill
Which is in the bill.
It's a different
part
thing.
of the bill. A part of the bill that says you can't.
Wait,
you're-
I
wait, one second.
understand. I understand.
I
that you
moved
second,
to
openly-
read the entire bill.
I understand
It's-
that you openly admit that you are unable to read research unless it's just the conclusion or the abstract. But again, the bill specifically
wait, one
states.
second. I'm getting my PhD. Where are you getting that from?
Yeah,
I'm
so
not
okay,
my
that's
PhD.
a
Is it a Marxist
what your
PhD?
PhD
No,
has nothing
I'm
to do
getting
with
a
human
PhD.
sexuality, right?
I'm getting a PhD in cancer research. You're telling me I
Okay,
can't
so
read
that's
papers?
is that human
Marxist cancer
is that
research.
human
Your own
sexuality?
fucking-
I
your
don't-
own fucking argumentation.
Is that human
about it.
sexuality or
Okay.
public
I
policy?
brought up a part of. Wait, one
Wait,
second.
this is
Okay.
derailing
I
so
brought up part of
hard.
I brought
Argument
up a
from
part of the
authority,
bill.
right? Argument
Part of
from
the bill.
authority.
No, I'm telling
gonna
you about
become
the
a
bill.
centrist.
The
No, you
7-page
said
bill.
you were getting a PhD in
All
cancer
sides suck.
research, and that somehow
he's saying
makes
I
you
can't
more
read a
qualified
paper.
than anybody else on this panel.
just
to
saying
speak
there's
to your
no.
subject.
Okay, this
Dylan,
is
please, you gotta, Dylan, please. I
Dylan,
read a
defend
part
me.
of the bill. I read a part of the bill, okay, that had nothing to do about the lesson, okay?
It's such a fucking
Okay.
It's such a fucking midwit. It's hilarious. Do you?
Fabian, since you're the guy who knows
Something's
how
in a bill.
Fabian,
Okay,
Fabian,
one second,
since
please.
you're the-
One
since you're the,
person. Okay, wait. One person at a time. I'm gonna have Loner talk, then finish this point. Then we're gonna bring it around to Sprout because Sprout, I think, wants to make a totally different point. So I want to make sure we can finish this point.
Fabian, since you said you're the one who reads, you read all the Frankfurt School writers, Karl Marx. Okay, like, what does it say right after kindergarten through 3?
You want me
We
to
all know what it says.
memorize word
We all
for
know.
word
We
what
all
comes
know. We all
exact
know
section?
why it extends beyond K through 3 because it says classroom
Yes.
instruction by school
Loner
personnel or
box,
third
loner
parties.
box.
I'm
Owner box,
classroom
please,
instruction.
please,
Classroom
please,
instruction. Classroom
please.
instruction.
Let him
cla-
finish. Let him
You're
finish.
embarrassing
Let him finish.
yourself.
I'm just reading the bill for you. I'm not. It's fine.
You're embarrassing
Fine.
yourself.
You guys are
Classroom-
making my job so much more difficult than it
let me
needs to
embarrass
be.
myself. Okay, if you think I'm embarrassing myself, let me do it and bask.
Jesus.
Classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate, which means that if a parent considers that the content in class was age inappropriate, that means the teacher has to explain that to a judge. That's the chilling
not what
effect.
that means.
That's what
That's
lawyers
not
are
what
like.
No,
there
it's
have
not.
been plenty.
It's why you're embarrassing yourself.
There have
concept in
been-
the U.S. law is of
there-
one of reasonableness,
There
right?
have been plenty of
period of
lawyers
time-
who have come
See,
out.
I
and
can't.
said that-
I can't hear myself think. Nobody can hear anything that's being said right now. This is all completely.
trying to
I don't
challenge
know. Wonderful. You hear that? Silence. It's a wonderful sound. Okay, we're gonna have Loner, like I said before, finish whatever the fuck Loner is saying. Okay.
Be great if you could understand it.
Oh, well,
MPU, I just want to say thank you so much for that comment. My life has been inexorably benefited by you opening your mouth and talking to me. Okay? I have not developed any brain tumors from having that happen for the 50th time today. Yes, you do. You do. Okay, Loner. And you scare conversation away. Loner.
It was masculine snark. Okay,
Please.
sorry. But in kindergarten through grade 3, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate, which means that they've extended past kindergarten through grade 3, or in a manner that is not age appropriate. Like that's what's been coming up with from like lawyers who have said that this is where the chilling effect comes from, where the fact that this gives like parents the opportunity to sue the school over what's being taught because they deem it to be age inappropriate, especially given that the people behind the bill are describing it as like on the grounds that it's sexual content, right? I don't know why. So if they call it sexual content, why would they say it's fine after grade 3? What is a kid fair game for sexual content when they're 10 years old? Like probably not, according to people. So
I can
again, so
interject.
let me just fix this stupidity for you for a second. First of all, chilling effect doctrine does not apply to fucking teachers. They're government employees. So any lawyer that you watch that brought up chilling effect doctrine as a means of talking about what teachers and government employees can and can't say is fucking lying. Second of all, yes, parents have standing, but the bill specifically states that local government, that local school boards have the ability to determine what is and isn't appropriate. The reason that the bill is so vague is that because it does this wonderful thing that you lefties love so much, which is as much democracy as possible. It allows what is developmentally appropriate and what is a reasonable expectation to be determined by the school boards and not by the state of Florida, right? So if a parent has standing, sure. I mean, like we will have to have the courts determine what standing is, because that's how standing is determined. It's by the courts, not necessarily by the bill. That's always the way that it is. But whether or not a parent has standing is not what's at issue here. You're bringing up other shit to get far away from Pixel Mixel's point, which is that she's trying to say that this bill will cause people to die. And I'm saying fucking how? And then Heem wants to bring out points from the bill that he already showed, that he already read other portions of the bill that show the
I read it the same part twice.
Issues.
No, you said that it was a lesson-based thing only, and I showed you that it wasn't lessons only. That's all I read the part
Didn't say
for.
that. You're just a fucking midwit that jumped at the first thing I said so that you could overreact and yell instead
What's
of
a
fucking
midwit?
listening.
You were wrong. You were saying the bill was about lessons. You said the bill was about the lesson structure, and you were wrong about that.
Sprout.
Do you really think that a 9-year-old who can't access gender confirming education is not going to have an incredibly bad mental impact on them?
I think the mental impact is going to be worse if you're giving gender affirming education to 9-year-olds.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No,
according to who?
I think the number of people, right, that this condition affects is astronomically small in fucking society. Astronomically small.
Well,
so when you say that in order
it's roughly 20%.
And whenever you try to say that this is necessary for these people, you are subjecting the rest of that population to this stuff. And your argument is to say if it is that this is the only way to prevent death. That's bullshit. It's fucking stupid.
It's emotional virtue signaling after the suicidality rate.
That is all that this is. It is all virtue signaling, and Disney's part in this is that they are just like Major League Baseball got fucked over for the All-Star game last year. We're gonna keep black people from voting in Georgia, And it turns out that Georgia's fucking voting laws, as adopted, are more liberal than fucking Colorado, where they moved the fucking All-Star game. It's fucking stupid. It is virtue signaling. It's fucking wrong. Okay, it's totally wrong to do that. And the vast majority of people who are pissed off about this quote unquote "Don't Say Gay" bill haven't read it. It's 7 fucking pages long. Heem said it, right? He's read it all. He said multiple parts of the same thing, or sorry, multiple sections in the same part multiple times. So it can't be that fucking hard for people to read. Go out and read the fucking thing for yourself.
Okay, Sprout.
And if you read
no,
it, you'll see that.
No,
it's
no, 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 no,
Don't
no, 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 no,
say
no.
that the thing.
No.
Don't say that the thing. Well, I'm finishing up my point.
Okay.
Don't say the thing is going to result in the death of anybody unless you can back that shit the fuck up.
Sprout.
I
Don't
think
do
you
it with
can
supposition.
Sprout.
Don't do it with supposition.
So the bill, so the first half of the bill isn't even what I'm majorly concerned about. It's the second half of the bill that somehow we haven't brought up yet. The second half of the bill that's unconstitutionally vague, that goes past third grade to the end of your schooling years. It goes from third to the end of schooling, which is unconstitutionally vague, meaning that an average person cannot read this bill or this law now and say, oh, this is how I'm supposed to act. That is unconstitutionally vague. If an average person can't read that and understand it and understand what the law actually is, it is therefore legally unconstitutionally vague. So the second half of this bill is completely unconstitutionally vague. And that's why the bill should be reformed. Something needs to happen to this bill because right now it is unconstitutional. It will be struck down by the courts.
Out of interest for the conservatives, so just to get away from the legal argument, if you're talking about like K through 3, that's like what, 9 years old, right? So 10 years old would be.
I was
like
actually wanting to
out of this. So I just wonder then, like, would you guys say then that like trans affirming education to 10-year-olds would be age appropriate? Do you think that would be fine?
I wanted
Just according
to
to you
address
guys
that
personally?
specifically. Yeah, no problem.
Personal,
No, hang
my
on,
personal
one second.
belief- Hang on,
Please,
Cindy,
no,
he asked the
please,
question. Let me
please.
just go ahead and
Yes,
answer it real quick.
well, I can
It's
answer
30
it, but I
seconds.
think you can-
30
I
seconds.
will count the 30
30
seconds.
seconds to answer his
I
question.
will count the 30 seconds.
Okay. It's like this. I don't think the fucking education system should be involved in the sexual education of children, period. That is a family and community fucking responsibility. That's my take. Maybe I'm old, I'm a boomer, but fuck it.
doing a
I
great
don't
job of
think
that for a
it
long
is. I
time.
don't think it is the purview of the fucking education system to indoctrinate children into the belief structures that specific teachers have.
What
No
about teaching
sex ed?
consent?
Yeah, wait,
What about sex ed?
no, beers. And then
Thank
I
you.
want to throw it to Pixel. I think Pixel want to say something, then we'll go him. Okay.
Thank you, Dial-In Bruns. So, donor box, specifically to what your question is, and I'm going to preface this with, I imagine that American conservatives and DeSantis have no fucking clue that they kind of got lucky. I think they, like, colloquial expression is getting like morally lucky, right? So there's a thing called Piaget's stages of cognitive development, and there's a thing called the concrete operational stage, where this is the stage where they start to lose they start losing egocentrism. Prior to that stage, they're primarily only understanding and knowing egocentrism. So at that stage, or beyond that stage rather, they start to understand what other people's lives are like. So this and a couple other facets of like the concrete operational stage are why it's kind of reasonable to set like this bar or this limit to where we don't want to teach them these things until then, or be really, really careful. I think that you guys have a really good point that there's a reasonable concern about the vague language. I don't want to get mired down in the legality because I know the vague language plays into like the constitutional shit. But we do need to be kind of more particular with our language when we're talking about these things. And I think it is too vague. It leaves the door open for abuses of the law. So we do need to be a lot more precise in the language. If you were looking for like a basis of like a scientific basis, Piaget's stages of cognitive development would be it.
Yeah, you should be really careful using Piaget because his models in terms of like age groups were based off of experimentation with his own children. I'm not saying that he's wrong. I like Piaget a lot, but you should be careful about like the actual age groups of his developmental model. Whereas like Erickson's is like much more widely regarded as like accurate in terms of age groups, even if you don't necessarily prescribe to Erickson's model.
Yep, Erickson is decent. It was just specifically the idea that
for sure. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying be careful with like the exact age groups when talking about Piaget.
Sure.
So to MPU, so you think there should be no sex education in the school corporation whatsoever? That sex ed should just go away.
I don't think it's the place. I think if you want to talk about the generalities of sex, like sex, reproduction, things like that, I think that's fine. I think schools got along just fucking fabulous for fucking 150 years without the construct of fucking saying that this kind of gender needs to be attracted to that kind of gender, whatever. I think if you want to teach people, you want to stop. No, I didn't say. Look, I said human sexuality, yes. Okay, but the construct of how different groups interact with each other, no, I don't think it's fucking appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate, and that's not anti. And I'm not anti-gay. I'm not transphobic. I just don't think that we should be using federal fucking tax dollars or even state tax dollars in my state, right?
So just to clarify,
let me answer your question. I think that if the people in a given state, because I think it is a state's fucking right issue, if people in Florida say they don't want to do it, but then Georgia says they want to do it, well, maybe that's the bad example for you guys. Maybe California says they want to do it. That's fine. It's up to the fucking voters in that state, right? I believe strongly in a federalist argument. Okay, so it's not whether or not it's appropriate or not. It's whether or not it should be mandated through a fucking U.S. Department of Education. And in Florida's case, right, they're exercising their 10th Amendment fucking power under the Constitution to decide what they can do or not. And to somebody else's point, I was looking at somebody's chat. They're not fucking quelling Disney's fucking ability to speak or take a stand. Let them do it. Disney wants to pour billions of dollars into fighting this thing and trying to take down DeSantis or whatever. Let them do it. Right? The people of Florida will fucking speak on that. And if the people of Florida say that DeSantis is fucking wrong, they'll do it. That's how it'll go. I think, and there are a lot of fucking people out there who think that the state, the government, has usurped parents' ability to do things. We saw a wave election
at this
in
point.
Virginia.
You're filibustering.
Let me finish. No, I'm not filibustering.
Yes, you are.
There was a wave election in Virginia where the top three offices hadn't been won since 1988. Okay, they had not swept them all since 1988, and it was all done primarily on the balance of like parents' rights within the school system. And Loudoun County specifically.
So back to my question. To clarify, you don't think that kids should learn about STDs, about how to have safe sex, about how condoms work, about the risk.
Hey, wait, stop, please.
I think if you want to teach people the consequences
let me finish the question.
Of sexual activity, I think that's fine, right? That's public health. I don't really have a problem with that, right? But when you're talking,
that's it. It's all I need to hear.
Okay, well, that's fine. Then I've answered your question because I'm not anti-sex education. What I am is anti-fucking indoctrination. And if you talk, everybody who's speaking out in favor of this, okay, really wants to indoctrinate your fucking kids.
What is indoctrinate? What about what is indoctrinate?
I'm gonna throw it to Pixel.
Isn't everything indoctrinate?
Look, Heem, you're a doctoral candidate, right? I don't need to tell you what indoctrinate means.
Well, I'm confused. Okay with religion in schools then? So you go with religion?
Stop, strawman it. No, I'm not a fan of fucking religion in schools either. Right?
I believe in the
Constitution. The Constitution is pretty fucking clear.
What about history? What about teaching about history? That technically could be indoctrination too, right?
No, history is history. No, history is history until it isn't. That means it is what it is until we learn more. And then history is shaped by what we learn.
What is indoctrination? I got an acronym for you. TSEL. Transformative Social Emotional Learning. Look it up. I'm not even going to go there in this conversation because everything is just a crazy Marxist conspiracy theory, but go educate yourself on transformative social emotional learning and you'll see fucking indoctrination happening in your schools.
Wonderful. We're going to
can I just real quick, do you think you shouldn't be able to teach consent and stuff too, or
no? Where's the fucking parents' role in teaching their kids?
Some parents are clearly incapable.
You say some, but then the construct to account for the fact that some don't is to fucking force all. That's fucking idiotic.
Wait, you're telling me that consent education is bad?
No, I'm telling you that it's not the fucking purview of the government to teach it. And
So
you're
if a
saying that
kid-
the
if a
only
kid
way,
is-
the
okay,
only
let me
way
ask you
to
a question.
save some is to force everybody else within
Let
the
me ask you a
construct. And that's
question.
fucking
Okay.
wrong.
Let me ask you a hypothetical, okay?
Wait,
A
can
kid
I
is
wait? I
inappropriately
actually,
touching-
I'm gonna take a personal privilege here. MBU, do you and I'm genuinely curious. What's your view on schools being more involved in teaching children personal finance, things like running checking accounts, stuff like that?
Totally believe it's fine.
Okay. Why would that be the purview of the government to teach children stuff like personal finance when that somebody can easily make the argument that that's not the role of the school? The schools is math, sciences, etc. But stuff like consent, which helps, probably, lower rape stuff, and it's largely beneficial for society, much like like finance education. What's the difference there?
Because finance education, in the construct of your argument, finance education appropriately given to young people sets them up for success later in life.
So it's because it
wait,
has consent, right?
You know what sex education, right? You want to do sex education is to like try not to get fucking pregnant.
Okay, MPU is just gonna be muted for 10 minutes. Okay, that's okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, you can yell all you want. I'm sorry. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it, dude. I'm trying. I tell people to be quiet, and I gotta draw a line somewhere. Okay. Did you just call for my execution? Was that like a beheading call for? I don't understand.
I think he's saying he's gonna leave if you keep him muted, but
Okay. I can show you the door. That's fine. I can't tell if that's what he's saying or not. Was that what you're saying? I can't tell. I muted you.
Listen, can't we all just act like grown men?
True.
I had
Okay.
a follow-up question for Dylan, or for MPU, if that was all right.
Okay, that's fine. But then we got to move on because we're going on a little long here.
Yeah, so you said that basically the finance thing was okay because it produces good outcomes. Like that's basically the gist, right? So if it could be shown, just hypothetically, someone could prove to you that sex education by the state actually reduces child abuse because it makes sure that if a kid is getting abused by their parent, they know what's happening to them. Would that change your mind on it? If it could be proven that sex education reduces abuse, if it's done by the state, would that change your mind on it? You can shake your head or nod. I'm asking. Yeah, I was asking you. Yeah,
I'm trying to understand your question. Are you saying that the education is required because there is significant abuse, and that therefore it's a public health issue and therefore required? Right.
Well,
you can make a better argument that people that are prepared to understand finance, can balance a checkbook, know how to save. They're going to take their money that they get from their job. They're going to save a little bit of it back instead of buying a fucking Xbox and new headphones every month, that they will somehow might be better prepared to actually get that next step or to prepare themselves educationally to become more successful within the paradigm of society.
Yeah, I agree. So by the same logic, a child who is taught sex education from a young age knows what's happening to them and knows that what's happening to them is wrong if they're abused by a parent or like a stepfather or
I think you're making a straw man argument because that's not what this bill is. That's not what this bill is.
No, I'm not asking you about the bill. I'm just asking you as a person.
I'm not going to argue straw man arguments because it's a specious fucking argument.
It's not a straw man argument. I'm just asking your thoughts.
If you want to say, okay, that there is in a particular school district, right, or in a school system that there is a high incidence rate of like child abuse, and you want to have that as a sort of a mechanism to sort of be aware of what's going on or to try to intervene. If you have a reasonable suspicion to do that, that's fine. But you can't just in this country, you can't just presume, okay, that this shit is going on.
Well, you can make it say,
it's a violation of civil fucking rights.
Well, you could just say the same thing about finance. You can't just assume that the kids won't all get taught by their parents.
Teaching people finance is fucking math. It's reading, writing, and fucking arithmetic. Okay, it's not like going out on a limb to tell somebody, well, this is the one thing in life that you don't need to know this because, well, society will just pick you up and dust you off and send you on your fucking way if you fucking fail. If you teach people personal finance as part of their arithmetic learning, okay, then they will more likely than not be less likely to fucking fail.
Okay, so yeah, this is like
it is
an example for.
It is questionable for you to make the other argument.
Okay, so you can interrupt other people, but no one can interrupt you. This is getting fun.
So sex education, say for a 5-year-old,
up.
even for someone quite young, say they're 5, is a teacher saying, here's like a little picture, like point, like they can be fully clothed, they can just point in the direction. These are your private parts. They're
Yeah, has your
private
parents
because
ever
they're
touched your
only for
private
you.
parts?
There we go again.
And then
They're not
you say
qualified.
they're your
qualified to do that.
Yeah,
They're not
you're
qualified.
not qualified to tell a kid these are your private parts. They're
Yeah,
for you only. If someone else can,
is a math teacher in grade school or kindergarten qualified to talk to a kid about sexual fucking identity?
You can sum it up in a sentence. These are your private parts. They're yours. If someone
not
else
even
touches them,
qualified
you
to-
should let someone know. Like what?
That's not what this is
I'm
about,
not
is it?
talking about I'm asking you as a person.
Okay,
I'm
so
asking
you're
your
making a
opinion.
straw man argument. You're making a typical leftist straw man argument.
Can you
to say
define a
that
straw man argument?
What about this? What about this? It's not fucking even remotely related to this bill or Disney's participation.
How is a question a straw man? Finance was nothing to do with the Disney thing. Okay, like we're just asking you a question. Like
It wasn't I answered somebody's question about finance, right? I didn't bring it up.
Okay, yeah. So you were fine to talk about finance. You were fine to answer a question about finance. I'm just asking you, what's
I'm
wrong?
telling you.
Like, if it could be proven that a teacher telling
Sure.
a child, these are your private parts, they're for you only. If someone else touches them, that's bad.
Sure. If the teacher
If
has
it could
a
be proven
reasonable-
that reduces child abuse, would you be okay with it?
If the teacher has a reasonable suspicion that it's going on, they shouldn't be talking to the child. They should be talking to the fucking authorities.
What if it's preventative? Just in case. We don't
Well,
know.
you can
Like, you
justify.
tend to not know that abuse is happening until it happens.
Your logic says that whatever you think is prescriptive from a preventative case analysis is totally okay. No, parents, you subsume away to the state the rights of parents. I think the parents have supremacy, except in cases where there's actual harm being done. And this law doesn't prevent. This law seeks to only allow parents the ability to have say in how their children are fucking taught in school. That's literally it.
What if the parent is the abuser?
What if the parent is the abuser?
That's why it's better to have the state educate.
Oh, you're saying
so
the
case
the case
preventative
statistics.
measure.
What are the case
It's gone for too long,
statistics?
Dylan. You should de-escalate.
Yeah, okay. So you said the question, and then you want to cut me off before I answer it. What are the case statistics? Okay, where this law, if it weren't in place, what are the case statistics out there that say these many children are going to be helped? I know Pixel says that people are going to fucking die. Okay, Pixel says that people are going to die if this law passes. Okay,
I wasn't asking
but
you.
there are no operative statistics that say that these many people would be protected.
There is a lot of information out there
There's
to
none.
suggest
Nothing you can cite specific to this fucking bill. And I dare
wasn't
you to
asking you-
fucking do so.
I can ask you about the death with the laws. I
the
wasn't asking you
gays were
about the
doing,
law.
like,
I was
so
just
well
asking
before.
You. Okay, all right. We can talk about how the bill's like dangerous for like that as well if you want.
I think we should probably.
isn't that the sort of the whole
We
point?
need to
right?
move
It's
on.
a bad
We
bill.
need to move on.
So is Disney
We
the
need
wrong
to-
person to be doing
we
this,
need-
right?
You know,
It's not me this time.
yeah, I was thinking about like Fabian's being very well behaved. I don't know if that's a relativity thing or if that's I don't know what it is. But we're going to wrap up and we're going to have ending statements. We're going to start with Adam and just go around the room.
Okay, well, I think pretty much everything has been said so far. Like everyone made their statements. So I will not drag it aside any longer. Next.
Wonderful. I'm going to throw it
Are
over.
these final statements? Are these like final goodbye into Hippy Dippy statements?
No, we have one more topic to do.
Oh, okay. I was
A
making sure.
spicy topic.
Yep. And now, okay, my Canadian fellow, I'm becoming a centrist during this. By the way, I'm
Hell
starting not because of values, but just because I hate everyone.
Hey, that's okay. Here in Canada, even though it's really hard to immigrate here, we love economic immigrants. If you can bring something with you, fuck yeah, come here.
I will never become a dirty
Um,
maple drinker. Continue.
Yeah, you say that, but I'll ask you again in 2 years. Yeah, I kind of agree with Adam. I think everything's been said under the sun. I guess the final points that I'll make are that I think some of the ideas in the bill are worth considering, but there's clear failure in the a way that it's written such that it does have the capacity. Like whether or not you want to talk about like scientific probability, possibility, guarantee, whatever. That to me, that's all moot. I think the fact is that the language is so vague that there is a strong potential for exploitation. And Florida is a state that's not really known for like being great for a lot of people. So I think it's better that. We see some kind of amendment to this bill to clarify some of the words and language that seem to be quite vague. And money in politics is kind of bad, so Disney can stay out and fuck yeah, let's take their tax money because taxes are necessary evil.
Okay, gonna throw it over to Fabian.
Yeah. So in closing, I thought it was really interesting that people talk about the consent to sex education, and whether or not that has anything to do with consent to the schooling system as it is. The real issue here is that conservatives have a set of family values. They have a set of religious values often. They have a set of morals that they believe. And then once those things begin to transcend, they have a problem and they are, for lack of a better word, to use I'm going to throw Marx in here one more time, the Marxist word, they're reactionary. Right? They react to what is occurring is kind of how we use it now, but really we're talking about people that can't be changed. But the problem here is that we didn't consent to schooling. We didn't consent to public education. You need to defund the schools and have private schools and have homeschooling and have Montessori schools and have homeschooling communities. And conservatives need to realize that these institutions are so infected, they're fucking done. This is too little, too late. The idea what we're talking about, the idea of what we're talking about is this is like, sex education or ideas of consent or saying like, oh, this person identifies a little bit differently. That's not what the fuck we're talking about. We're talking about things like transformative social emotional learning, things that are being adopted in Pennsylvania, things that are being adopted in South Carolina and being adopted in California. And what is a definition, according to CASEL, the people that put out social emotional learning, is a process whereby young people and adults, and you can watch them teaching teachers and leadership courses that they want to start this as soon as pre-K, helping young people and adults build strong, respectful, and lasting relationships that facilitate co-learning to critically examine root causes of inequity and to develop collaborative social solutions that lead to personal, community, and societal well-being. It is turning your children into activists. It is indoctrinating them with a philosophy that is disgusting as young as they can be to try and deprogram them out of a conception of gender roles, deprogram them out of heteronormativity, deprogram them from believing in things like gender roles, deprogram them from having colorblind philosophy instead of being in a praxeological mind of critical race theory. And that is the type of shit that we are talking about that is already in schools. The only answer is for conservatives to realize that you don't have the power anymore, and the only power you have is to pull your fucking children out of these disgusting schools and let the left have them and let them crash and burn.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to him.
Okay, so when I brought up consent, I wasn't trying to talk about consent to sex education. I was actually talking about educating kids on the concept of consent, right? And what the argument that was made against it is that you guys were saying the parents should teach that. And one thing that's funny about that is actually a lot of times it's teaching consent in schools that can help small children who are being abused at home realize that something that's happening at home isn't actually appropriate. So it's weird to me that you wouldn't want you wouldn't want a baseline level of consent to be taught to children. And I don't know, I guess I find that a little bit strange. And then the other thing is, just to reiterate, okay, I hate flexing my education, okay? The only reason I did it was because Fabian randomly said that I claim that I only read abstracts and conclusions. Okay, that's the only reason I had to bring up my degree. It wasn't to make an argument about this bill. And lastly, to close on this bill, the bill, as I said, as I read and posted in both chats, Dylan's chat and my chat, it says specifically that it's more than just the education and the lesson plan. If it was just the lesson plan, I guess that's one thing, but this isn't just about the lesson plan. It's actually about anything a child discloses to the teacher has to be reported back to the parent. And then there's like a little caveat that, unless they think that there's going to be abuse or not. And that just becomes a complete gray area, you know? Why would a teacher risk that when their career might be on the line? They're more likely going to put the child in danger and tell the parent, your kid told me that he might be gay, because they don't want to get themselves in trouble. I think that's the problem, is it's going to end up like restricting teachers' judgments on these things.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Loner.
I don't hate flexing my education. The word reactionary came from the French Revolution, not Marx. It was reactionnaire, which was referring to monarchs and aristocrats. Actually, like the early Soviet Marxists would have described like gender identity and like sexuality and sexual liberation as bourgeois. They didn't really like it that much. Anyway, someone else can go.
Okay, I'm going to throw it to Pixel.
I think it's really interesting that conservatives didn't have a problem with Disney until they started, being a little bit more progressive. I think most of this is about money. I think what's going on in Florida is disgusting. And I think that educating children about gender and sex education is a really important thing. And I do think that there is an age-appropriate way to do that. In almost kids ask questions. Anybody who has been around kids knows that from the age of 3, they ask questions. It's really, it's not hard. And I really think that Florida is trying very hard to keep control of something that is just, it's inevitable. Society changes, society progresses, and the regressive beliefs that I think More Perfect Union wants, it makes me really sad. And that's all I have to say on that.
Sprouticus?
Yeah, you've heard some wild things throughout this topic. And I think the most wild of them is the idea that sex ed shouldn't be taught in schools. Going to what Heem said about abuse victims, 5% of high school boys in grades 9 through 12 admitted to being sexually abused. 12% of high school girls in grades 9 through 12 admitted to being sexually abused. And 93% of the people who were sexually abused knew their abuser. And so for that simple reason alone, I see no reason as to why sex ed should be taken out of schools where they are right now. And I think it's an asinine proposal to say that sex ed should not be taught in schools. It should only be taught by the parents. That's an asinine proposal. It leads kids down a place where possibly their parents just decide that they don't need to know whatever, and they end up being pregnant at 16 because they didn't know how to have safe sex, or ended up with an STD because they didn't know how to have safe sex. There's so many different possibilities that can come out of taking sex ed out of schools. It's asinine. So, I mean, that's the end of my statement. So,
and MPU.
Yeah. MTV, Teen Mom OG, all these different fucking TV shows, right? That come on where they show teenage kids having children out of wedlock. They're clearly in fucking high school. That stuff is watched by a lot of kids. And there's a lot of reasons why there's a lot of reasons why kids have fucking children. The biggest single cause of it is that they have fucking sex. Okay. And I was a kid, right? I basically was taught by my parents, don't bring home no baby. So you had to figure, you had to understand how to get there. We actually had in the 70s sex education that said, this is what you do. This is how you prevent unwanted pregnancy, right? That wasn't and I lived in a Bible thumper fucking county, okay, in Southwest Virginia, and nobody was burning down the fucking school to prevent that kind of education. There's a difference between that and indoctrinating or suggesting or feeling like a teacher is free or school system is free to sort of intrusively ask. The arguments that you guys have, that the people who are anti what the fuck is going on in Florida have posited forward, are all based on marginal use cases, or not marginal use cases, but just marginal cases. Okay. The fact that there are maybe some that this might happen, or should we do this if it prevents this, that, or whatever. This is typical leftist arguments to say that if we can just stop one thing from happening, then we should fuck everything else up in society for it. This is the argument, right? They use it for guns. They use it for every fucking thing else. There is a place for education, for sex education. Children who are below the average age of puberty do not need to be educated about sex. And this isn't even what that fucking bill does. This bill, okay, says you can't talk to them about sexual identity or things that are outside of their age. That most people in society, I get that a lot of people on the left are okay with anything is good at any fucking time, right? But there are things that children don't need to be exposed to because they're children. Let them be kids for just a little bit fucking longer, because as they're going to find out, as we found out here on this panel, there's a lot of bullshit in the fucking world. Okay. Give them an opportunity to at least have a little bit of fucking innocence before you jam that shit down their fucking throat.
Okay. Thank you all for another exciting topic. For everybody watching at home, I would greatly appreciate if you supported the channel. I'm out in Poland filming a documentary about the Ukrainian refugee crisis. Today we talked to the headmaster of a local preschool hosting Ukrainian refugee children. We got a lot of very interesting testimony. One instance of this is how local Ukrainian refugee children in the school, during playtime when jets come overhead, there's actually, they will duck down due to the fact that they have learned to be scared of planes. And it is testimony like this, which I think will be extremely revealing for a lot of people moving forward, on exactly how the biggest casualty of war isn't necessarily soldiers, it is usually civilians. And I want to highlight that with this. We do also plan to go into Ukraine in the near future to get more interviews, get more testimony. We also plan to talk with more people coordinating military aid. We've talked to local mayors in Poland on how they coordinated support for refugees. It's building up, and I'm very excited for the project. So just look out for that in the near future. And if you can support the channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. Now we're going to go into the last topic of the day. You wanted to say something quickly?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, no matter if you love rainbow capitalism or you hate teaching kids shit, so that because you're against educating kids, or you're a manly man, or you're a very quiet woman, Twitch Prime. Twitch Prime helps out Dylan Burns. So,
thank you. I appreciate that. We're now going to go into the last topic, which is about Libs of TikTok. I don't know if I've ever had a topic about a specific Twitter account before, but we are now in that universe. So Libs of TikTok is a right-wing Twitter account which posts video from people's TikToks and stuff of left-wing people. And they do things. I think people can, I think in their intros, people will describe what type of stuff they've posted. And recently, an article was released which revealed their identity. It revealed their name. It revealed that they, what city they live in. They revealed their job. And a lot of people are calling this doxing and saying that it's immoral and it's meant to intimidate them. Other people are saying that it's justice for what they've done to teachers and other people. So my question is, did Libs of TikTok deserve to be unmasked? I'm going to start with Pixel.
The way this is played out is very interesting. I don't think anybody should really have their information doxed, but looking at the article where it came out, it seems that there is a lot going on within this conversation. There are a lot of things at play. I think the account itself is very obvious in its vilification of queer people. And I think that is a big part of the conversation that we're about to have. My take is that I don't think anybody deserves to be doxxed, but this is an interesting one.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Sprout.
we're all internet personalities at this point. Being on the Hippy Dippy, we're all internet personalities, and I think that none of us want to be doxxed. I know I sure don't want to be doxxed. And whether or not you think your points are correct or not, there's gonna be another side that doesn't believe your points are correct. And so I don't wish doxing upon anyone else. And so I think doxing is wrong. Almost no matter the circumstances. Actually, just no matter the circumstances, I think doxing's wrong. And if anyone on this panel is gonna say that Libs and TikTok deserve to be doxed, I would ask yourself first if you would want to be doxed as an internet personality.
Okay. Now I'm going to throw it over to MPU.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree, mostly with, almost exclusively with what Pixel said and what Sproutica said. The idea that a person under a pseudonym is posting something on social media where that's basically a reclamation of other people's content. And for people on the left who much of this content is being promoted by, they get pissed off that there's somehow that somebody's drawing like a bright light, Justice Louis Brandeis, right? A bright light shine on the speech in order to illustrate the meme of it all. Whatever. I don't really follow a lot of that content, so I'm not going to speak to the specifics about things, but from what I understand, it's a lot of regurgitation of other people's shit, sort of like reaction streams by Twitch politics people, right? So I mean, it's similar kind of shit, right? Nobody should live in a society where that's where people who disagree with the person's take, that they want to go out there and they want to fire it up. You don't like me? Come over to my show, post whatever the fuck you want, man. I'm not going to fucking trash you unless you're just being a complete asshole. But if you disagree with me, disagree with me. We've had a lot of robust debate here on this. Nobody that I'm aware of is trying to dox me, but I don't really care either. Okay. That particular situation, yeah, unless you have that consent, right? That's like taking something away from somebody. They're doing something for entertainment value or to illustrate hypocrisy. People should be left alone with it. And the only thing that I'll take a little bit of exception with is that, Pixels, you said, nobody should be doxxed, but it's like you're dealing with like a moral, trying to generate a moral equivalency, right? Like, maybe the circumstances might warrant it, but you're not saying that. And to your credit, that's credit for you. But it should just be, don't fucking dox somebody, right? I'll give Sproutica's credit for saying that. Nobody should be fucking doxed, even if we are internet people.
She was doxing people, so yeah.
Was she doxing
Sorry,
people their own content, right?
Sorry, he addressed me. That's the only reason.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Lonerbox, Heem, Fabian, the Canadian, and then Adam. You guys get the order.
Yeah, so I think the little way out that the opponents of Libs of TikTok are using is that Libs of TikTok, very stupidly, didn't create a new account. They used an account that had previously been had former names, and then that was part of how they were able to get their information, like her name came out. So, however, there are enough definitions of doxing out there that still can count, because doxing can be, even if you take public information, because all the information about Libs of TikTok was already public. It was under their .us domain, and that necessitated you had to put your personal details. So like Libs of TikTok kind of dox themselves, but you can say that it's still doxing to take public information, to seek it out and attach it to a pseudonymous account that hadn't done it itself. So that is technically doxing. If you agree with that definition, though, if you want to say that Libs of TikTok were doxed, you would also have to say that what they did was doxing. Because I've got one tweet up right now of a first grade teacher talking about their experiences being trans. They tagged the school, whereas the content that they shared, the TikTok they shared, did not mention the school, which means it was public information that was sought out. If Libs of TikTok were doxed, then so too were Libs of TikTok doing doxing. Only with the addition that Libs of TikTok were engaging in doxing with the purpose of falsely calling people groomers. I've scrolled through their account quite a bit. I haven't seen anything that would meet a definition of grooming. Sorry, Cope. But yeah, they were doing it with the express purpose of trying to get people to lose their jobs. It led to targeted harassment campaigns. It led to death threats, etc. So yeah, there's doxing on both sides. I guess we could maybe rather get into the whole insanity of the fact that they're democratically elected officials who are legislating in a way that's inspired by an account that takes TikTok videos and posts them. That's not really how like trends work. I hope legislation doesn't get based on Twitter accounts too often, but
All right, thank you, Lonerbox, for the intro. Next, we're gonna go to Heem. Okay, so I have actually wrote an opening for this. Okay, so bear with me. So I first want to say fuck libs of TikTok and any of these platforms that just exist to rage bait. Like there are ways to criticize people who don't agree with you, but to pick random examples of people off the internet who are perhaps just a bit over the line, out of the norm, and say, oh, look at the degeneracy on the left, all it does is just divide people more. The more these platforms who do nothing but rage bait thrive, the worse off society is. So I think when I see people on the left only rage baiting and not actually trying to engage with the ideas, I call that out. And I think conservatives should call out this behavior as well, so we can have better discourse. Like, I'm all for disagreement on the merits of things, but it's very important to make sure that it's not just for the rage bait, you know? I followed the story of one of these teachers who wore a shirt that had Mulan twerking, okay? Or something like that in a classroom on a day where there was no students in class. She had 200 followers on TikTok. The next thing you know, Libs of TikTok posts it, and then Fox News runs the story that night and puts on their chyron, crazy liberal teachers are brainwashing your kids. Now imagine how she would have felt. 1 second she's posting a lighthearted meme on her TikTok to 300 people, and the next second she's on primetime television. Now, as for the doxing, I've heard claims saying that everything was already publicly available, but when you go to the WAPO article now, it's been edited. And I know this because just before the panel tonight, I did the Wayback Machine, and if you do it on the day that the article was initially published, there's a link that says that the owner is a real estate salesperson, and if you click on the link, it takes you to the actual real estate page with all of her information about how she's from Brooklyn, da da da. So, but she does the same thing, right? And also, she made the grave mistake of going and doing tours on media. It's not like she was trying to be super anonymous and stuff. She was doing media tours, just doing them anonymously. And then lastly, I think like accounts like people like Joe Rogan and stuff who go out there, they might have seen one or two things they retweeted, and they go out there and they say, oh, I love libs of TikTok, and say shit like that. That does a lot of disservice because it kind of gives them legitimacy. And then before you know it, DeSantis's press secretary was crediting libs of TikTok for bringing attention about the degeneracy of the left. So yeah, there you go. As Lonerbox said, the information was it was their own. You know, they could have done more to hide it.
Fabian?
Yeah. Already you're kind of hearing like, well, this account, reposts other people and they do it in a bad way. And somehow I don't understand what the importance of that is. Maybe we're just talking about libs of TikTok in general. There is a massive amount of left-wing accounts that do this, right? And social media is predominantly controlled by left-wing institutions. Institutionally, their moderation is explicitly less left-wing. Because things like misgendering, for example, is a great example, right? Right wingers that don't believe in doing that are forced to follow guidelines that are based off of a leftist philosophy of the world and of sexuality and sexual orientation and gender. That being said, when looking at the Taylor Lorenz doxing situation, I think there's a lot of doxing that has gone all around, right? Taylor Lorenz was supposedly the victim of doxing. Libs of TikTok is, was obviously doxed, not by her, because she didn't do any journalism, but by the German government. The German government was the one that was funding left-wing, Travis Brown and his organization, but it's the German government giving it to another supposedly private institution, giving it to Travis Brown, giving it to her. So like, I think conservatives are maybe maybe drawing a line that isn't perfect there. Like you can like prove that it's like a secret agent thing or something, when it might just be that, left-wing governments and left-wing corporations and left-wing people like to do this type of activism and like to do wild shit. Taylor Lorenz, however old you are, if you're 49 or 37 or 32, I don't know, you're sensitive about it for some reason. You know that you doxed someone. You know that it was wrong. Um, have libs of TikTok maybe gone a little bit too far and been a little bit loose with their information that could be called doxing in some degree? Sure, yeah, I would say so. There's a lot of fake memes and a lot of fake screenshots out there where, like, if you use the Wayback Machine, like, their doxing is like not on Wayback Machine. It's obviously just edited to try and say that they're doing that. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. But ultimately, doxing's fucked up. It's wrong. And the idea to say, well, it's public information, but the way that we had to get a public information was with like codes and like experts going through information that wasn't saved anywhere, as opposed to shit that was just widely available, is a little bit disingenuous, right? Like, it wasn't like anybody could have just looked this up. There was an Antifa account that started it, and they believed that they might have found the person, that it might be this person, and it wasn't until Travis Brown's organization was able to confirm it with their software that they were able to definitively say that it was that person before they doxed them. Doxing's bad, and anybody that says it's not bad is silly. So I guess we'll talk about the woke accounts of TikTok people and whether or not we should be shining a light on crazy people educating your children, whether or not we're not allowed to do that if we put too many bad words in front of their video.
Okay. I'm now going to throw it over to my Canadian friend.
Thank you. Always so polite to the Canadians, except for him.
He doesn't consider me Canadian. I think he's one of those types that says if you're not born in Canada, you don't count.
What's the purple party in Canada?
People's Party of
I
Canada.
voted for them. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Several
Self-reported. My God. All right. So I'm going to take a bit of a take that I don't think anyone else did. I don't know that she was really doxxed, because to me, based off like my experiences over the years, and like a long time ago, I was in like the hacking underground in like the early 2000s. So for me, when somebody says doxing is like a comprehensive breakdown of all the personal information of the person, usually in some kind of pastebin format or some other text format, which can then be weaponized against the person specifically. And I don't know that the sharing of this information that was like pretty easily accessible, like double-digit IQ people could look up the domain name and like just do a little bit of like cursory Google searching and find this shit out. Like, it's I really question whether or not it's like fully legitimate doxing. And I think as content creators, and especially so somebody like Libs of TikTok, we should all be acclimated to the idea that when we put stuff out on the internet, it's like we're sitting at the center of a coliseum, right? We should expect that we're going to have a lot of eyes on us. So we're going to have a lot of pushback, a lot of criticisms, and people are going to Google us. I shouldn't say us, like I'm a nobody. I haven't really done shit. So people are going to like Google them, right? Like, people are going to like look. And a lot of the times they're going to wonder like details, but I don't know if that really counts as like doxing, because to me, doxing requires that like malicious intent. I think the Washington Post should still be able to write those kind of articles like that, but I do think that they could have done it a little bit better and had a little bit more like journalistic integrity. I think they could have had an overall better account of like better challenge and criticism of the content that they're posting, free of a lot of like the virtue signaling and things that you often see in outfits like Washington Post, because they're really because we all do it, right? Everybody likes to signal like moral outrage, talk about like how outrageous the person did this, the person said that. I would just like to see that. And I don't think it's good, no matter what, to permit doxing, because I think that is, again, like a comprehensive personal account that can be weaponized as if they're on some kind of list. And I think, based off of like what I've started to learn about Twitch and Twitch histories, we really don't like lists.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Adam.
Okay, so like this Libs of TikTok page, first of all, I mean, what it is essentially an ongoing like cringe compilation. These sites used to be pretty popular, and just Libs of TikTok is what we're seeing is essentially just a 2016 YouTube anti-SJW channel, but like in text, basically. Oh, look at these degenerates, and all these like insane progressives, and then people come and like rant about the Jews in the comments or something. At least this is how it used to go. doing the echo signs and whatnot. What happened to them, of course, like doxing isn't nice. That being said, I believe there's a gradient. If, for example, someone just doing just like non-combative whatever content and then gets doxed by political adversaries online, that's bad. However, Libs of TikTok have been doing this like very sort of venomous, incredibly sort of incendiary, combative shit online. So at this point, they should also exercise a bit of personal responsibility and just admit that they have been playing stupid games, and sometimes when you do, you win stupid prizes.
Okay, who wants to start us off? Oh, MPU.
Just a quick question for Bryce. So if releasing, I get your argument, like in the classical sense about doxing. I totally agree with that, right? But that's a 90s kind of an argument, right? But in today's world, where we have the countervailing forces of people who can relatively easily speaking, right? You can get somebody's personal information if you're willing to dig out that info. If you have a malicious intent, say somebody doesn't, again, I'm not making a personal judgment about Libs of TikTok or anybody else. I'm saying that somebody who disagrees with the approach or the take that person is doing, they find out where they work. And then they put it in their sphere of influence and say they're like somebody like Hassan, who's got 40,000 people watching him all the time, right? And then they decide to take up a crusade to go say that person works for Pepsi. I don't know where they work, but say they work for Pepsi and they go out, and Pepsi's a woke company. And then they say, okay, we're going to just go ahead and crush you now because you're giving us so much bad publicity that we're going to now harm the person who is behind the account. That kind of stuff it's doxing, right? Because the release of the information has you have to look. I see leftists all the time, okay, say that no, my constitution has to be flexible, but your ideology doesn't. Okay,
So
if you're willing, I'm just trying to say my point, right? Is if you can release. If you can release somebody's name or employer, and then that has an opportunity to give that person's followers or other people on the internet with ill intent, okay, they can go out and they can leverage that company fires that person. Now you've actually harmed that person. That is exactly what doxing was intended to do. It was to create pressure to cause somebody to stop a certain behavior. And it is a chilling effect. And in the last conversation we just had, you guys were all talking about like the chilling effect of X. Okay, and I think it's fucking stupid that people think that this is okay to do that. It's wrong. It's totally wrong.
So if you want to talk about malicious intent,
can I respond to him?
Yeah, go on.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Letterbox. So I'm not a mind reader. I'm not going to speculate as to whether or not somebody has malicious intent. That would be a case for lawyers to prove that there was malicious intent in these examples. And I'm not a lawyer either. With regards to what you're saying, I think that there are other problems that are not that are not the subject of conversation. So if we're talking about like cancel culture, accountability, or the actions of people like brigading and things like that, these are all like separate conversations that I don't know that we're having right now. So I don't know how relevant it is actually to talk, because at its core, the point is that we're not mind readers. So we don't know exactly if somebody had the malicious intent that there'd be some byproduct of that action leading to somebody getting brigaded against, right? Like this hypothetical doesn't really pan out because it relies on us being mind readers.
Yeah, as far as malicious intent goes, I think intent is a kind of like, even I can say this, I don't think there's malicious intent from Libs of TikTok. I think it's very possible that their person, like whoever she is, like actually thinks she's doing the right thing. What I would look at is consequences, right? The consequences of Libs of TikTok getting doxed was that they went on Tucker Carlson and got to milk the fact that they were doxed, even though they did very little to avoid it happening. The consequences of people who get doxed by Libs of TikTok is that they get falsely accused of grooming. They get thousands of people calling them pedophiles and calling their schools and accusing them of grooming, causing massive amounts of stress. Like, okay, do we think that one of these is like less like malicious, has less of a malicious intent or in consequence?
I think
than
that's.
the other?
I would
really good point.
I would argue Libs of TikTok did more damage to people that she doxed by naming their place of work. And even if it's a small place of work, I think that even if it's a small place of work, they're going to be more likely to let you go than to try and deal with the public outrage. Especially if it's a small place of work. If it's bigger, they can kind of deal with it a little bit better because they got more money, they can move around. But if it's a small place of work, then it's something that's like, yeah, we can't have you working here because of the public outrage. But yeah, if there are places of work were being contacted, I think Libs and TikTok did something that was much more egregious form of doxing. But I still don't think it was correct to dox her. I think that the correct action, considering doxing is more than likely considered harassment, is that Twitter banned the account for doxing, which would be allowed legally, because you're not allowed to harass someone even in public. So I would argue that the correct action instead of doxing would should have been in Twitter taking action. So
Yep, I think it's not actually doxing. I think we're just talking about harassment because I think again there has to be for me what doxing entails because we're talking about the byproduct of this information, right? So the byproduct in these situations where there's malicious intent, like in a comprehensive document that breaks down like the entire person's identity more than just a few tidbits of information, like you'd find on like a domain registrar, is usually because they'll do stuff to like shut off your utilities, shut off your power, to actually like terrorize you and torment you, right? Whereas like in this situation, it's more about like the social accountability, which I think if we want to get into like that conversation, whether or not there should or shouldn't be social accountability for our behavior in these online platforms, like that's kind of an interesting
I
segue to
think
make.
I think you're being maybe a little bit unfair. Like I get your point, but you're being a little bit unfair under two things. First, I don't know that the debate, the semantic debate about what is and isn't doxing is necessarily helpful. Though, I mean, like, sure, fine, we can do it, but I think we all obviously are kind of in a context of the colloquial expression of doxing as in information that wasn't available to the public widely that people didn't know, and then they present that information in a large form of that now allow a large swath of the public to be able to find out where you live, where you work, what your name is, what company you work for, etc. Right? And maybe not from the strict definition that you're working from, is it considered doxing, right? But I don't know that that's
Sure, we
all
can
that
talk about the
helpful.
harassment. Like we can talk about the harassment and do a
Right,
better
but it's
job at teaching
but
people
it's
like
more than
digital
right, but
responsibility, right?
harassment.
Like
Okay, maybe we need a new term for this, right? But it's more than harassment because you're not just harassing person, you're also putting their information that essentially no one had and no one could confirm until another company by Travis Brown was able to use his software to find that the information was valid from having previously tracked that information. Antifa had attempted to dox them, but they couldn't confirm it. Nobody could confirm who this was until a company that tracks right wingers and their information was able to confirm it to her. Right? You said like anybody with like, a 2-digit IQ could do this. I don't know. Maybe you're a fucking IT wizard, but I think you might be overestimating what anybody with a 2-digit
I
IQ was able to
what
do.
I read was that she listed there was a couple different things that like I feel like maybe this is a difference in like regular activities when you're like looking into somebody, but I do think that you might also underestimate like how many people
She
are
used her full
digitally
name.
savvy
She used her
on the
full
domain.
name and cell phone number linked to her real estate sales contact
Oh, okay, real estate,
information.
yeah.
She gave like literally every
And she's a real estate agent, right? Which is already like a more publicly like available and more accessible kind of career than
Yeah.
other careers.
Before the
Let's
argument
be
is, it's very
let's
simple. Before this article, the public was not aware of who this person was. After this article, the public was widely aware of who this person was, where her family lived, where she lived, what her phone number was, etc. Right?
Yeah,
Do you
Now,
that's
think
you
like
don't
the
if you want
digital
to
age
call
that
that
we live in.
harassment,
That's a problem with privacy, right? Like we live
listen,
in a
I
digital age where
okay,
no
but there's
listen,
still
I
a moral
would
impetus on the Washington Post to have some journalistic integrity to not share this fucking information.
I kind of agree that like they could have done a better it could have been even a more effective piece if they were like, hey, look, here's Libs of TikTok, here's what they do, here's examples of people's lives they've destroyed, and here's examples of them like in the article it says how Ron DeSantis's press secretary is now using Libs of TikTok and saying it opened her eyes towards the degeneracy of the left. Da, da, da. I think there's a lot of criticisms of Libs of TikTok to be made that unfortunately because she named the person it actually undermined all of the other arguments and kind of brushed them under the rug. And now everyone's focusing on how she's the victim rather than how much of a scumbag she is and how she does absolutely nothing to hide the identity of the people that she's trying to expose. When I, who have only like 11,000 followers on Twitter, when I want to call people out, and especially if they're smaller accounts, I will block out their name because it's the least I can do. Because if you're really out there trying to criticize people's behaviors only, hey, look at this person, they're doing something wrong and it should be critiqued. You don't need to attach their name to it and say, oh, here, go call their school board, da 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 da. And I think that's where it's like we could use a little bit more responsibility. I guess I don't have a problem saying that like her identity doesn't matter here. It's the fact that like what she's doing, you know. And I think, as I said earlier, these kind of rage baity platforms, there's another one on Insta called Six Buzz, which is a Canadian one. All they do is post rage bait. They'll post like a random person having a mental episode and be like, this is Canada under Justin Trudeau. What do you think? It's like, dude, all you're doing is sowing division. This is fucking horrible for society and I hate it.
Yeah, no, I can agree
I
with
have a
you.
question, a legitimate question, right? Like,
Well, Loner hasn't talked for a while, actually.
go ahead, Loner. It's fine.
No.
Yeah, like this, it's like what white supremacists would always do as well. Like actual white supremacists, like they would do this thing where they'd say, you know, like white people are being persecuted by black violence, and then they would just have like a compilation of like 17 videos of white people getting beaten up by black people. And there's no context. We don't know why these like fights broke out, and they could be like filmed like 10 years apart. But the idea is it's like you're there to feed into some preconceived notion, and that's what Libs of TikTok does as well. It's very like postmodern tactics. So you got to hand it to them. The way that people are like identifying trends based on a very carefully curated scroll of TikToks. And then again, if we're talking about the like, I don't think Libs of TikTok give a fuck about being doxxed. Like they even posted a picture from their front door where you could see the street in the background saying like, hey, Taylor, you're harassing our family. But that gave me more information about the home address than anything in the Taylor Lorenz article.
That was not real.
It wasn't real.
That wasn't real.
It's literally if you reverse image search that image and you just Google egged house, that's the first photo.
Yeah, just
not
Google
egg.
egged house.
No. The house at the Libs of TikTok tweeted the picture of Taylor Lorenz outside the house.
You ever heard
This
of
is on Libs of TikTok's Twitter.
Oh, you mean like at their family member's house? Where they're,
Yes,
like,
this is
yeah.
This is
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about
yeah, and that gave me more information about their home address than like anything that in the Taylor Lorenz article. So yeah, I don't think Libs of TikTok gave a fuck about being doxxed. But yeah, the point is like,
I doubt that it's more information than the literal address one click away.
Like the address wasn't, but no, the Libs like Taylor's the Libs of TikTok. There was their work address that was on the Washington Post link, not her home address.
I really wanted to respond.
The Libs of TikTok home address wasn't on the Washington Post article. Just to be clear, the home address there was no home address there. There was just the work address. So but yeah, like if you want, if I want to come clean and say I don't really have much sympathy for them because their whole account is like a doxing and harassing like platform. That's what they do. And,
or at least the doxing like instigator. Like, hey, here's some chum. Do with it what you want. Hundreds of thousands of people. Here's a fucking piece of shit that needs to be exposed. But I'm not gonna tell you who they are. You guys figure it out for yourself.
Well, see, this is the question that I have. Right, that I wanted to ask is like, if these are teachers in your schools, right, and they're and what you're doing is you're exposing people who are in a specific school district. It's a difficult line here because what you don't want obviously is like, you know, national attention on a specific teacher for being crazy if this is some isolated incident. But at the same time, do not the parents in schools that are where you have a public education system where they're taking tax dollars from you have some right to know this information from teachers that are in their own schools? And should this not be shown? Like it's a weird, delicate balance because like you don't want the specific school to be shown because you don't want national attention. You don't want like a harassment campaign started against this teacher or et cetera, et cetera. Whereas at the same time, there are parents who their own schools are in here. Like it's like I don't know, like where do you draw that line?
Sure, but it's not that shaky though, because Libs of TikTok, whether they wanted a targeted harassment campaign or not, they behaved in a way that targeted harassment was inevitable. I don't think I've looked through the last they like.
But that's not what I'm asking. Like I'm asking, like, what do you do in that situation?
Look,
as a parent.
You tell the school
So,
board. You tell the principal. What do you mean?
Okay, there's a difference. So
You
for
can do that
Fabian,
privately,
there's these problems. Like we do need oversight as to what happens in schools, obviously, but these problems should be solved through the proper oversight bodies, not online lynch mobs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually
There's-
interject real quick to
That's
say
what-
that I think he might have had a really good point that we could probably expect more from WAPO in terms of like cognizance of like the potential for brigading or like negative fallout. It should just be something that could be factored in the editorial process. But at the same time, it is the neo-Marxists that were at the Washington Post that we're talking about. So
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
like
true.
the question, like, it's not really about like exposing though, because what they didn't really do it was defaming. They're calling people groomers and shit, and then it's like you've got thousands of people contacting a
Based
school board
off
saying
of-
this teacher is a groomer and shit. And
Based
yeah,
off of like a 5-second TikTok, like you don't fucking know anything.
Yeah,
the
okay.
one I
Honestly,
mentioned,
like-
there was no students even at the school. She was wearing a shirt on a day where there was no students at the school. She was just doing whatever teachers do when there's no students, like prepping themselves or whatever.
okay,
and they're posting that as though she's a groomer and shit. Like there's no one there.
Look, we can talk all day long and whataboutism about the rhetoric in political conversations on fucking Twitter, right? Like where like we can pretend to be so offended that someone was called a groomer, which is something that like literally when everyone is talking about these insane fucking lefty teachers, we're calling them that. Or we could talk about the whataboutism of like left-wing people calling people fascists and putting them on fascist lists
No, I'm
every time
saying
that
that
they
we
have like the
shouldn't
wrong
do
take.
that.
Right.
Yeah, we
I'm with
shouldn't
you.
do
I'm
that,
with you.
yeah.
But the problem, right? The problem is that we do indeed have an unaccountable education system in America where there are teachers that espouse insane fucking ideological beliefs to your children, and your children are exposed to these things. And instead of like us having an informed population that's aware of what's going on in schools, parents aren't aware of this.
So you think the best way to hold teachers to account is to have them go viral, or have them have the potential of going viral?
What are you, fucking Kathy Newman, and I'm Jordan Peterson here? Like, I didn't say that shit. What I'm saying is that we have a fundamental problem here.
I'm saying there's
and
better
that's
ways to
simple.
do it. There's
No
a
shit,
union,
I'm
there's a school
agreeing with
board,
you.
there's a superintendent. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Why do you think that the wait?
Do
Why
you
do you
yell
think?
just to yell? Like, listen to what I say.
Well, you just go on and on. You just go on and on. So I need to
Are you too
interject
stupid
with
to follow?
If,
Like,
no,
if there's
trust me,
if
trust
there's
me,
a
I'm not too
fundamental
stupid.
problem, what is the solution?
Right, that's what I'm asking. I'm literally not even debating at this point. I'm just asking
you
an
asked-
open-ended
okay.
question and saying, like, okay, we clearly have an issue with like certain ideologies and parents aren't aware. We clearly have an issue where these people are being doxxed because they're getting nationwide attention from a from a Twitter account with like 700,000 plus people, right? Like, what is the solution? I mean, like, my solution, if I was giving one, would be get your fucking kids out of public schools because there's no fucking accountability, and that we should open this up to the private market. But I'm asking you guys, like, what do we do in this situation where there's clearly a problem? And I think that Libs of TikTok is a symptom of a problem here, of multiple problems here.
So wait,
I don't think there's
the
clearly
problem
okay.
of-
Like
the problem
I
of
can-
neo-Marxists indoctrinating your children at school, or which problem we're talking about?
No, he
specifically?
thinks the problem is that some of these teachers, they go to class and then like after school they might talk about, oh yeah, we spoke about like gender stuff today, and then apparently that's like some kind of fucking horror show and whatever. But like,
okay.
yeah, there are. I
Don't
scroll
answer
through
the
for like.
question, or do your bullet points.
Well,
whatever.
no, you're
Fucking
begging the
answer
question
things
because
all
you're
out.
saying that the existence of these teachers in schools is a problem. I don't think
If
it
you-
is for like the vast
if you
majority
don't
of
think
them.
it isn't, then like there's no better way to show me that you're not a parent.
Can you give me
Like,
one
these
example,
insane-
Fabian? Please,
Dude, literally
please.
just go. You say you've looked at Libs of TikTok. There's
Yeah.
insane,
I'm
batshit
curious.
crazy.
Can you
people
show
all
me
over.
anything from?
Can you show
me
us your
anything
strongest
from-
example? I've
Well,
looked for the last 2 weeks
so
of your
think-
content. I saw
specify.
nothing. Okay.
Okay,
Could you show me
literally,
anything in
I'm not-
IB or
I'm
AP?
literally. This is what I'm going to say to anyone that wants to look. You can just go to Libs of TikTok and scroll down. And if you think that shit's not insane and there aren't tons of insane examples there, you're a fucking weirdo.
You're
You
begging
do
the
understand-
question. Yeah,
wait,
because
wait,
you're
wait,
looking
wait,
at
wait, wait.
fallacy if I
You
ever
do
heard one.
understand- So you do understand this
Okay.
is like the
After
far,
Sprout
far
and PO.
minority. This is like the far, far left, the far, far minority of what you're seeing. You do understand this is like handpicked from like I'm gonna find the craziest shit I can possibly find on TikTok. Like, you're acting like this happens in your local school district. All right, guys, lives on TikTok. Everyone, it found a teacher in every one of your local school districts. So we need to fucking fix this shit. No, this is like a minority case situation in which this is like the craziest crazy that Libs of TikTok could possibly find. Like, you do
And
understand that, right?
and again, I already stated transformative social emotional learning as something that is being
What the fuck is that? That
institutionalized.
is so random. That is so
I gave you
obscure
a
and random.
definition.
Like,
I gave you a
took the- okay,
definition
hold
and
on,
then
hold on,
told
hold
you
on, hold on,
3
hold on,
states
hold
that
on.
You
were
just
instituted in
love
the state.
acronyms. You just
Right.
you have
I'm just-
such a fucking hard on for acronyms. It's like APA this, fucking TSEL that. Like, no one
A little too
cares.
masculine.
Right.
ESG,
So,
ESG.
I suppose.
LOL.
I don't know
I
what to tell. I can't
suppose
give
what
you
we're
examples
saying-
of crazy people. I can't give you examples of it
No,
being
I'm asking you.
institutional.
Can
Can't
you
give
show me
examples
something from
of
IB? Can you show me
Why
from
not?
like
I brought examples. I
Wait,
looked at
wait,
some
okay,
examples
wait,
of
wait,
Libs
wait,
of
wait,
TikTok.
wait, wait. Give me a second. Okay, I want to hear my friendly neighborhood Canadian. Okay, from your friendly neighborhood Polish
What do you
trooper. I
want?
want to hear
What do you
your
want,
question.
Dylan? What do you
Okay.
want?
I said my
Dylan?
friendly neighborhood Canadian.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
friendly.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, Nova Scotia, by the way. That's why he said friendly, because best province in the Canada. Okay, yeah, no. So this the TSL. I do not doubt that this thing exists. Right, this thing you can find it. I did some Google searching. It exists on like UN's website. It's definitely something that people talk about. It doesn't seem like it's something that is instituted in really far and wide way. I think there's something even on like California's website, but the existence of it does not prove that it's something that is instituted on a wide set basis, because across across secondary education, we have systems like AP and IB that have a huge percentage of American education. And I promise, what I've been trying to ask you is, can you show me in either official AP documentation or IB documentation, because I fucking know you love acronyms, of this TESL, TSL shit, whatever it is.
I don't have that to pull up at this moment. No, I only have that it's instituted in South Carolina, that it's instituted in Pennsylvania, that it's instituted in California. And most of these TSEL things are in leadership courses for teachers. It's mostly PhD level individuals teaching transformative social emotional learning, and then saying, look, you need to engage in
Right.
psychology and psychiatry with your children.
So what? So the fuck
That's
what?
a
These
problem.
are established. No, is not. Okay, the reason prior,
So
you
what?
could maybe
Can
get some.
you
No, hang on.
looked at
Let
the
me talk. Let me
definition,
respond
right?
to you.
I read it.
So it doesn't. You're talking about people that have finished their PhDs that are now like employed as teachers, and if they're being going through.
No, it's not. They don't have necessarily PhDs. These are people that are
That's not the
teaching
point that I'm relying on.
primary,
The point-
secondary
No, he's
education.
talking about the leadership courses that
Oh,
most
Yes,
of
my
these
the
apologies.
leader.
institutions,
Yeah,
right?
the
Like it's
leadership
in New
courses.
York, they have like voluntary
Yeah,
leadership.
so the way, okay, even if this existed, like we can be super charitable and say that this exists in North Carolina, California, and I forget the third one,
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. But
I mean, it's
the existence of this
in the school
doesn't.
structure.
Right, but it's really funny because I think like this is the third or fourth time that you've relied on presenting something that seems different than what it really is when we look into it, and that's kind of making me think that you're inadvertently using.
I read the definition from Casel.
Yeah, okay.
How am I presenting it differently by reading the definition from the highest authority on it?
If I read a sentence and I infer from that sentence something that does not necessarily, if I'm inferring it in the worst way imaginable, does that mean that that is emphatically the case? That like no matter what, or could there be other alternate interpretations? Like could this TSL stuff actually not that bad and actually not even be that impactful?
I mean,
Like do you have
if you want to go watch my VODs where we watch the leadership courses for hours on end and like specifically go over it, and you want to think, well, he's making a bunch of hullabaloo about nothing and that that is what it is, go check out my VOD. We're in a debate about fucking libs of TikTok, and I'm bringing up one example of institutional problems that I see and the fact that parents aren't aware, and how do we deal with that situation?
Okay,
no,
so
no,
if the
no,
question,
hang on.
Keegan, if the
don't mind-
question's about libs of TikTok, okay, well, yeah, it's a debate, okay, but you're assuming that your emotional response to these videos is going to be the same as ours unless we're insane. Which is not a very good argument, by the way. We've asked you, just give us an example. You said, well, just go scroll through Libs of TikTok. I've scrolled through Libs of TikTok. I imagine other people have. I don't see like a big problem with a lot of what they're posting. I can see one or two things that maybe a parent, I can understand their concern, but overall, like, no, nothing that justifies a public shaming
Right.
campaign
I'm
and targeted abuse and shit. So
inviting the audience to watch it because I think that unlike you that thinks a majority of America is turning in a woke progressive way, as you said earlier, I don't think that's what's actually going on. And I think when normal fucking people look at the videos on Libs of TikTok, they go, what the fuck is happening in our schools?
okay, so you can't make an argument then. You're just begging the question. You're just saying it's crazy
No.
because it's because you said so. Okay, can I just have one example?
Okay,
then?
fine. I'll just go to Libs of TikTok and then show you and say, do you
Okay,
think this is
you don't-
normal? And then
so-
you'll say it's normal.
So
and
you
I'll
don't
be
understand.
like, fucking what's
so
wrong? What the hell?
You obviously,
can talk about the
don't
content.
understand what the saying is, right? You obviously don't understand what's going on. This is the craziest of the crazy. You can always find the craziest of the crazy. You can do that with the right wing when they pull out the Nazis and be like, "Oh, this must represent the entire right wing." That's the exact same thing you're doing right now. Is you're equating the entire right wing to Nazis. Yeah, you're saying the same exact thing, but with education, like this is the farthest out there education we can possibly get, and now it's the entire education. That's not
Nobody's
what goes on.
saying
You can go
that.
pull up
Sprout,
videos.
keep
No
going.
one is saying that.
You can go pull up videos all you
I
want
never
of
said
Libs
that
of
this is
TikTok
the
and say, is this
entirety-
correct? But you're saying that we should all get out of public schools and we all should all go to private schools. You're saying this is the issue, and they keep asking, "What's the issue?" You're like, let me go pull up some videos from Libs of TikTok, and I'll ask you if it's an issue.
You know what's really funny is I was on
Nobody
Libs
is
of I
saying
was
that
looking at Libs of TikTok, and one of the videos that I thought, okay, I can see why a teacher, why a parent might find this a bit weird. Like they might have a word, doesn't justify what Libs of TikTok does, but like it was a video of this preschool teacher saying that like, oh, we teach diversity, and you know, like one day we said with kids, you can have your little pronoun badges, you can pick a pronoun. Most of the kids pick the pronoun that they had at birth, but one or two changed, and you know that was a bit of fun. And I'm like, maybe like gender bending at the age of 4 might be a bit concerning to some parents, whatever. So I looked at the person's TikTok, and all throughout their TikTok is just videos about them like coming home from work and talking about like how much they love their job and like how much their favorite thing is when a kid is stuck on a problem, but then they solve it, and giving like advice on how to deal with frustration when you're educating. I'm like, this person's a fucking demigod, you know? And like, what? Because of fucking pronoun badges, we're gonna like publicly shame like I don't even think that's that harmful. Like I fucking wore dresses in nursery, and like comparing that to like, I don't know, the crazy fucking Catholic lady who threatened to force feed me at lunchtime. Like, but then I actually saw that.
Shame that behavior.
Yeah, and Fabian, I actually saw that.
would work
I
out
actually
too
saw
well
that
for you,
this person I'm talking about with the pronoun badges, the non-binary person, was actually homeschooled by like Christian conservatives, and that's how they turned out. That's really funny. Anyway.
Yeah, publicly shame them. Yes, I agree.
So I want to really interject here because I'm not going to let this go. This whole social emotional learning shit is just, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to be rude because that's kind of bullshit. I looked into this even more than I did just previously. And even there are a couple of things like CASEL and this SEL4CA, which is like the Social Emotional Learning Alliance for California. And even in their own words, it says that the legislation surrounding this is weak and they have a hard time ever getting this passed in any school. And they have to consider that it's something that has to be a point of further progression and like activism, and that they have a number of different things that they want to try to pass, but it's not.
That's why it's being instituted in training courses and leadership courses for teachers.
Sure, it might be in optional training courses for teachers, but it's not set in stone. It's not enforced by Californian legislation. I imagine that if I look into the other two states, it is not going to be enforced by the legislation of those states. So it's going to be something exactly what Spartacus said. You're looking at outliers. You're getting a curated account that is presenting extreme outliers that you cannot use to justify the norm of what's happening.
It's again, what am I justifying? What I'm justifying is that is defunding and getting out of schools. That is an anarcho-capitalist philosophy that doesn't even need any of this Libs of TikTok shit to begin with.
But so far you've been arguing that, right?
What's that?
So far you've been kind of like you haven't directly argued, but like you heavily implied that like because of all these like insane woke whatever libs, we should just take our kids out of schools and like homeschool them or something.
I've been arguing to conservatives that these institutions, that this march on the institutions is not going away. It's gonna continue. It's gonna get worse. And the best thing you can do is, instead of making reactionary fucking bills in Florida, you should just get your fucking kids out of these schools. Yes.
How do you feel about the fact that one of those that non-binary gender badges person was actually like homeschooled by pretty radical conservatives. Like
It's irrelevant.
they spent
You
more
know,
time.
I'm an
No,
atheist.
It's irrelevant.
What are you talking
I know you think it's funny, but it's really irrelevant to the topic.
well,
You're
I'm
saying-
Okay,
It's
wait.
just-
Actually, wait. MPU has been waiting for a while, so I do want to throw it over to MPU. He did raise his hand a while ago.
Yeah, it's irrelevant, loaner box, because how a person identifies or chooses to identify, or how they are, right? Has no. It's not supposed to have any bearing on how you were raised as a child, right? So for you to make that sort of a specious sort of a attack against conservative Christian parents is somehow, oh, it's funny, it's great, right? It's irrelevant. It's just fucking irrelevant. And here's the other thing: when
what's
you
the
talk
point in
about
homeschooling then?
when we talk, because you don't trust the public school system. This is again why the elections in Virginia swung so mightily in favor of the GOP, because nobody in Virginia trusts the school fucking system and the public education system under the regime that had been doing it for 25 fucking years.
Yeah, Loudoun
Okay?
County was a big reason for
That was a very
Like
large
it's-
reason. Okay.
when.
And then and the other issue, California, right? You don't have to explicitly state. You were talking about the vagueness, right, of the California curriculum, or what was being argued. There's a reason why it's vague like that, right? It's vague in order to give people cover so that they can probatively test the boundaries upon which they can sort of leverage. And once they find a vector they can attack, then they will go out and they will create new legislation or new guidelines that are more finite over time. And you see that over the historical progression of how legislation and how rulemaking and stuff like that occurs, right? They give the public what they think the public will take, and then they keep pushing the boundary to get them to take more. This is the whole construct behind liberalism to begin with, in the United States, starting with fucking Woodrow Wilson, right? And the first progressive movement that existed in the U.S.
Oh, pause.
I don't know why.
Leftism.
I don't know why you're.
I'm the only liberal here.
Well, originally leftism, right? The progressivism that started with Woodrow Wilson under the auspices of the United States really took place after we had the 16th and 17th Amendments, right? So, and I don't know why you shake your heads. I don't know why you shake your head, Bryce, about it. That's how progressive things occur. They are incremental changes, right? Until the point where the people in power.
Why are you praising this like it's a bad thing? I think you have to look.
Well,
You want to look at.
let me finish my point. Well, because
Okay,
you
finish saying
kind
your
of
thing
shook
5
your head.
times. No, go for
You,
it.
well, you were shaking your
Spit it.
head about what I was saying.
Yeah, spit it
The
out.
problem is that the progressive left in the United States, they push and push and push and push until they get a snapback. Okay. And what's coming at least in the United States, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the United States, come November, there's a lot of people that are projecting massive, historically massive losses for the Democratic Party, because people are tired about this construct that says, I don't care what half the country thinks. And even people on the left side of the aisle, especially in Virginia, right? And Youngkin didn't get elected governor because of the Republicans. Democrats outnumber Republicans in Virginia. Pissed off parents put Youngkin and the rest of the GOP in power there. That is a cautionary tale for the left in this country.
Okay, so I'm going to try to go back. You said a bunch of things there, and some of it not relevant to what I want to respond to. The way that you're framing this incremental change, this push, this is the kind of natural way that a lot of political theorists and a lot of philosophers actually think is the ideal way of doing things on both sides of the political spectrum. You have Edward Bernstein, who's like the father of SocDems, who is more in favor of like progress and reform over time, and actually having it being in almost a perpetual state of progress. And then you honestly, even like Edmund Burke, right? Even he was like, I prefer like reform and change over time, right? So I mean, to try to package this and frame this as like, well, it's a bad thing because you're getting incremental change over time. Like, no, like that's exactly what we fucking want. You just got to get with the times.
Okay, I'm gonna admit I'm completely lost. How does this have anything to do with libs of TikTok or doxing?
It doesn't.
Because it doesn't.
Thank you,
They're
Scout.
just.
I think we exhausted the topic pretty much.
So, can we talk about some of the TikToks? What about the I don't know, the guy who got accused of being a pedophile because he was researching the online map community? Like what?
Well, I mean, that guy was specifically saying, I believe it's a guy, was specifically saying that they intentionally used the term map.
because
right?
they were
Because-
researching them. Because they were
And they wanted
researching
to
those
encourage,
people.
and they wanted to encourage, and they were saying that it would help to encourage people to seek help rather than to vilify them and have them, kind of maybe act on it in secret or something like that. I actually remember
Yeah.
on our podcast with Dylan, I was initially like, "Yo, look at this thing." Remember Dylan when we looked into that, like literally one of our first podcasts. I was like, "Yo, what is this thing?" And then when we actually looked at it and discussed it, it was like, "Oh, okay, it kind of makes sense."
That was also like there was a bit where he basically did the classic like you distinguish between like the pedophile and like the sexual opportunist because they have like different criminal categories because every other crime it helps to understand the criminal. But yeah, I'm just saying
I
like
think-
if this
I
is
think-
the best
I think
example
we
you guys
found- I
have of
think-
like craziness.
I think we found exactly why you don't see much crazy on Libs.
Why?
and
Why?
TikTok,
Why?
Because
Why?
you're specifically stating that people advocating for using minor attracted persons and
Why?
getting
In
away
what
from the term
context?
pedophilia.
In what context was he saying? He was saying saying he used the term map because that's what they identified as because he was researching them.
And he said that he preferred to use the language that communities identify themselves as opposed to other communities and what they label this person as. But I think that when you see people justifying using minor attracted persons instead of pedophile, we know exactly why you don't see anything wild on Libs and TikTok.
That's how you study every community because if he's trying to get information on these people, if he goes in saying, I'm going to interview the grooming pedophile community, no one's going to fucking talk to him. This is the most normal thing about research. It's just because pedophilia came in, your brain is just fucking melted. That's the problem. Like you're not mature enough to have these discussions.
Wait, Loner Box, you're telling me if I put out a study and I try to recruit pedophiles, I'm not going to get a high participation rate?
Yeah, I think that might be the case. Yeah, but that will also lead to them staying more in the shadows and more kids getting hurt. But it's good because we get to virtue signal that we hate pedophiles. I'm just saying, if this is the best example you have of like liberal insanity, God, it's so underwhelming. Like, fuck.
I think it's just an extension of the constant vilification of the LGBTQ community. Like that is what is happening on this platform, and it's disgusting.
You mean on TikTok or Twitch?
Yeah, on Libs of TikTok. It's just it's an extension of it's an extension of the way LGBTQIA plus people have been vilified for a very long time.
I mean, it's just a way to like point at like, haha, look at the degenerates, haha. Like it's just like your average, like pretty far right thing to do, actually.
Is that like how leftists like laugh when people that didn't take a COVID vaccine died? Same kind of thing.
That was cringe. That was horrible. Fuck that. Yeah.
Well, I didn't catch that. Well, if they did, they're fucking assholes.
Okay.
And if any of my comrades come calling you guys fascists and put you on fucking Twitter so they can get you like doxxed and harassed, then yeah, I won't like those people either.
Yeah, sure.
I got your back, guys. Got your back.
Yeah, the difference is that like these behaviors, like these these negative behaviors on the left that MPU mentioned, like these are usually like within the left vilified or like viewed in like, guys, this is kind of like cringe. Like, so sure, some people might go, but like most people are like, dude, like this is kind of fucked up. And then here we have libs of TikTok going like, look at the degenerate, and then they have like 1 million followers. So this kind of dogpiling, lynch mob behavior is much more prevalent on the right. And on the right, I see people sort of even egging this on, like supporting this. I mean, fuck, like, Libs of TikTok have been on Fox News, right? And on the left, it's kind of like there's more like, guys, listen, look, some of you might be laughing, but let's exercise some introspection here. Is this really correct, or So there's more like so in this case, it's the right that's like all gas, no brakes.
Okay. I think it's time for us to wrap up. It's getting pretty late. Or for me,
good morning, Dylan.
Yeah, good morning. It's almost 6 a.m. now. I now know the European experience on my show.
Good.
Wonderful. So now we're going to wrap up. Again, for everybody watching, any support you can throw to the channel is greatly appreciated. We're now going to have everybody give their ending statements and their outros. Every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. So now we're going to throw it over first to Adam something.
Thank you. So, thank you for the discussion. It was sometimes even productive, somewhat. Let's not be too generous, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So I think for me a big takeaway of this discussion is the importance of like not being enveloped in buzzwords and sort of meaningless cultural virtue signals. We heard, my favorite part of the evening perhaps is the definition of Marxism provided by Fabian. That was some Dre Day comedy. Otherwise, like I think most people brought out their best arguments for better or worse, but I think for the most part, it was just Fabian and MPU versus everyone else, and otherwise, I think it was a more or less productive discussion. I'm sorry, it's 6 a.m. and I'm tired, so I'm not one for closing statements at this point. So I'll throw it over to the next person.
Wonderful.
Who is?
We'll throw it over to my friendly Canadian.
Thank you. I think generally we did a good job. I'll ignore my point where I don't think it's really doxing, but I think we did a good job of showing that we probably shouldn't really do this, but at the same time, Washington Post could probably done a lot better. But this, at the same time, again, they're neo-Marxists, so like, what can we really expect from them? All that vulgar Marxism. But no, seriously. Also, I wanted to give big ups to Pixel. She's been so demure and feminine tonight and being very quiet. You gotta appreciate a woman that knows when to talk and when not to. And I'm a little disappointed in the men tonight. I feel like a lot of the men that could have acted like men really acted like little boys. But it's across the board, kind of a shit show, but super fun. Thank you for having me, Dylan. You can find me at Bryce Live, BRYSLIVE here on Twitch, and I'll be streaming lots of shit starting May.
The views expressed by my panelists are not the views expressed by Dylan Burns or Dylan Burns TV. We're going to throw it over to Fabian.
Yeah, I kind of knew, especially with the masculinity question, that this was going to devolve into a shit show of talking points. And I mean, but that's what blood sports is here. If you want to get like, in-depth conversations, you usually got to watch like 1v1s, but sometimes the blood sports is a little bit more fun and entertaining. In terms of this entire Libs of TikTok situation, look, I don't think doxing them was good. I don't think that the right answer per se is to show some of these insane people, advocating for maps and advocating for all kinds of random crazy shit with all their hair color going everywhere and pens is like necessarily good to like give them the specific school they're in and give them national attention as an individual. I'm not sure that that's the appropriate way to do it either. In terms of Taylor Lorenz and in that situation, I think it's very obvious that this person's not a journalist, that what they do is they go after people and attack them and use whatever tactics are available to them to try and win the culture war. Another example of that I'm sure most of you guys aren't aware of is Praxben on TikTok, who's, another anarcho-capitalist. He specifically did an interview with her and he told her, I listen to a lot of people on the right. I listen to a lot of people on the left. I like to watch Vosh's content, even though I think it's cringe because I think it's really funny. And then the way that she then reported it in the Washington Post was Mr. Williams said he's inspired by YouTubers like Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, and Paul Joseph Watson, a prominent far-right personality and InfoWars contributor who's known for spreading conspiracy theories. And then in the next paragraph, she talks about Media Matters and using their reports, right? Like this is an ideologue. This isn't a journalist. It was designed to be a hit piece. And I think it's very clear if you just read this person's writing that obviously malicious intent was there and that she's not out here trying to uncover the truth and do some honest shoe leather reporting. I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. We're an anarcho-capitalist duo. I have a partner. Sorry, I can't even think of the right word. Two of us, we do a lot of news. We do philosophy reading nights twice a week. We do a lot of fun stuff. Next Thursday, or this Thursday, I guess, at this point, we will be interviewing at 8 p.m. EST, Jeremy Kaufman and Eric from the Twitter account of the LP from New Hampshire, as well as prominent board on the Free State Project and running for Senate for the LP, and hopefully more interviews and things like that to come. Thank you guys so much.
Wow, you found your intellectual equal. We're gonna throw it over to him.
Certainly couldn't find one on Twitch.
Okay. Yo, thank you so much for the great topics. It was really spicy. This was one of the best hippy dippies that I've been on, at least. It was a lot of fun. Listen, in general, okay, if you ever come watch my stream, you'll see that, like, while I'm a progressive, I try not to be a fucking asshole to conservatives. I don't try to name call and call people fascists and Nazis and stuff like that. That's not my game, okay? I think that there's something to be said about, like, being able to digest everything that's happening without dehumanizing the other side. And I think that that's the one thing that Libs of TikTok is the exact antithesis of. All they want to do is rage bait for clicks. Okay, if you find yourself getting angry and falling for these rage bait channels, disengage and be okay with criticizing them. And then anyways, as for who I am, I'm Heem. You can find me at twitch.tv/Heem. You can find me on Twitter at the only Heem. And if you go on my YouTube, the video I uploaded today, I cosplayed as Chud Logic, Hassan Abi, Infrared Show, and Destiny. And it's a really funny segment that came spontaneously, and everybody seems to be enjoying the impressions. Dylan, thank you for having me on, my American friend. And it was really nice to get to share the panel with all of you.
Happy to have you on. I'm going to throw it over to Loner.
Yeah, I think it's like a really interesting summary of what's kind of happened lately. I mean, conservatives are actually not conservatives. I know lots of conservatives. They're very decent people mostly. Republicans basically lost the American culture war, and now they're just coping and calling everyone nonsense. But it might work. It'll probably work. Anger is a very easy emotion to trigger, and they do a very good job of it. I should give my hats off to Libs of TikTok for utilizing postmodern tactics so well. The way that they've just built this fucking like hyper reality where like you should be afraid because your school district might have a map advocate who plays about with gender pins and blue hair, and I don't know. I mean, if thinking about like just looking through some of those teachers though, I was just thinking like, fuck, compared to like the fucking crazy nun who like threatened to force feed me as a 4-year-old, or like the very like conservative like Indian teacher in Dubai who like got kids to do fucking push-ups when they fucked up in class and shit. Yeah, progress is a nice thing. I'm glad we're where we are today.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Pixel.
I hope everybody appreciates my extremely feminine appearance on this panel because I pushed through a major hangover, so Dylan didn't get cancelled this week for not knowing any women. So yeah, it's been fun. I don't really have much to say left on the last topic, but yeah, I am usually a little bit more energetic than this. I think the best part of this panel was Spraticus just going full-blown lefty for like, welcome.
I think it's the vaccine side effect.
Yeah, I don't know. Something in the water. It was great though. But yeah, no, I had a good time. You can come watch me if you want. But yeah, I am so hungover. I just can't. It was entertaining though.
I'm the #1 woman knower on Twitch. I know at least 3 women total. I'm going to throw it over to Sprout.
We'll start with, well, that was unexpected. But yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/thespraticus, twitter.com/thespraticus. I am a conservative, believe it or not. That's up to you, I guess. But anyways, if you guys like my content, if you guys like what I had to say, go give me a follow on Twitch or a sub on Twitch, and go give me a follow on Twitter. And I hope to see you guys later.
And we'll wrap it up with MPU.
Yeah, doxing anybody because you disagree with their philosophical take is fucked up. And to the extent that Libs of TikTok has gone after people and exposed them, lack of pardon the pun, exposed them their personal information for an intent to try to harm them, that's problematic. And exposing Libs of TikTok's personal information for the intent of trying to harm their ability to earn a living is kind of fucked up. And I think the most telling statement about all of that was that Antifa tried to dox the person and was unable to do it. There's nobody in this room, hopefully, can look and say that Antifa is a good-natured organization who's got the interest of the country at heart. They're I don't want to say anarchists, but they're basically fascistic in how they operate and do all the stuff they do. And if they're trying to do something to somebody, there's probably that person probably should be defended, at least in some regard. The New York Times and Washington Post, these publications are they're cringe as fuck because they're run by leftists. And they don't have anything good to say about anybody on the right hand side of the argument. And it's not to say that everything that happens on the right is good and should be defended. Shit that's fucked up should be called out. And that's all that I really wanted to say about it. Some of the arguments that people were making were just like, is it doxing? Is it not doxing? It's stupid. The practical effect of a thing is that somebody's information gets released and they get harmed as a result of that happening. That is the practical equivalency of whether you want to be legalistic in the definition or not. That said, I enjoyed the debate topics, and it did get spirited. So I do have a lot of respect for everybody on here. I've actually debated everybody here except for Adam something up at the top. So I appreciate having the opportunity to meet you. I am the More Perfect Union. I occasionally stream on Twitch, the More Perfect Union. I also have a new show that's getting ready to start up in the next 3 weeks. It's all technology driven. It's all product reviews, how to stream, how to improve the output of your stream, and so forth. A lot of technical reviews and stuff like that. This Sunday, May 1st, I'm actually going to be doing a live stream interview with all of the state office candidates on the Republican side here in Wisconsin. So what you guys will stay tuned on my Twitch channel for that. And then I'll let you know, I'm also on Twitter at The Real MPU.
Wonderful. I'm sure all my Wisconsin viewers will vote for them all. You all have a blessed night. I'm going to go collapse immediately. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Okay.